I will call this meeting to order. This is a regular business meeting of the Flagler Beach City Commission. Today is Thursday, April 23rd. The time is 5:30 p.m. Mayor, if you could lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, and this will be followed by a moment of silence to honor our veterans, members of the armed forces, and first responders. Thank you. All right, well, everybody's getting situated. If you could take a moment to look at your cell phones, make sure they are on silent, vibrate, or turned off, please. And Mayor, do we have any proclamations or awards? All right.
Good evening. Proclamation expressing gratitude to Susan Smith and honoring the memory of Mark Hippis. Whereas the Flagler Beach Volunteer Fire Association is committed to the safety and well-being of its community members, and whereas the sudden, unexpected nature of cardiac arrest requires immediate intervention to improve survival rates, and whereas Susan Smith has generously made a substantial donation of funds for the purpose of purchasing automated external defibrillators, AEDs, in memory of her husband, Mark Hippis. Every year, AEDs used by bystanders save over 1,700 lives, often with just minutes, when every second truly matters. And whereas this donation, given in loving memory of Mark Hippis, will be installed in high-traffic, high-need areas to be used in times of urgent medical need. And whereas ensuring these devices are widely available not only honors Mark's memory, but strengthens the safety of our entire community. And whereas we acknowledge that these AEDs are a lasting tribute that will empower bystanders to act and potentially save lives. Now therefore, I, Patty King, Mayor of the City of Flagler Beach, do hereby express sincere gratitude to Susan Smith and formally recognize this generous donation of $20,000 for AEDs and AED supplies in memory of Mark Hippis, this 23rd day of April 2026. I just want to thank the city for doing that, and I want to thank Chief Cox, if he come up, and just know that we'll be working together over the next year to get the program in place and then continue on from there. Thank you so much for your help, and thank you, Patty, for your help.
Susan, on behalf of the City of Flagler Beach, I want to thank you. One of our first initiatives when I stepped in the role of fire chief was community risk reduction, which focused on automatic external defibrillators. And the goal was to reduce the cardiac arrest death rate that we had in the city. And this was planned to be a phased-in approach over a couple of years. And with your generosity, we're immediately to fully fund the entire initiative at this time. And your husband, Mark, would be so proud of you, and we're so grateful for a community member like you. Thank you.
All right, one more to go. Proclamation, Municipal Clerks Week, May 3rd through 9th, 2026. Whereas the office of the municipal clerk has long been a cornerstone of local government, serving communities around the world with dedication and care. And whereas the municipal clerk is among the earliest and most trusted public servants, playing a vital role in preserving the integrity and continuity of government. And whereas the municipal clerk serves as an essential connection between the residents of our community, our local governing body, and other levels of government, ensuring that communication remains open, accessible, and effective. Whereas municipal clerks are committed to upholding the highest standards of neutrality and fairness, providing equal and respectful service to every member of the public. And whereas the municipal clerk acts as a reliable source of information, helping residents better understand the workings of their local government and stay engaged in their community. And whereas municipal clerks continually seek to grow and improve through ongoing education, professional development, and active participation in organizations that strengthen their ability to serve. And whereas it is both fitting and meaningful to recognize the important contributions municipal clerks make to the strength, transparency, and daily function of our community. Now, therefore, I, Patty King, Mayor of Flagler Beach, do hereby recognize the week of May 9th, 3rd through 9th as Municipal Clerks Week. On behalf of the City Commission, we further extend our appreciation to our municipal clerk, Penny Overstreet, for her tireless efforts to ensure that the work of our city is conducted openly and efficiently, and for demonstrating professionalism, responsiveness, and genuine care for our residents to help foster trust in local government and strengthen the connection between City Hall and the community we serve. Penny? Uh-oh, I don't want to make this clerk mad. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mayor. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Mayor. If I could, I'd like to invite Acting Chief Blanchett forward. After a lengthy process and with the unanimous support of an all board, I would like to appoint Lance Blanchett as the police chief. Took 35 years of hard work to get here, but now that I'm here, the hard work really begins. It's an honor to stand before you, and there are so many people that I have to thank for standing at this podium at this moment. But as not to inadvertently admit anyone important, I'm going to keep it a little bit vague except for a few. First of all, I want to thank the city manager, the city attorney, the commissioners, and Madam Mayor, because without you, I would not be standing here. To my Flagler Beach Police Department family, who have always stood by me, to retired Chief Downey, who paved the way for me to stand here, to all the city employees who have always been so helpful to me in my career since I've been here from day one, to the community and to the business owners who have always stepped up with the highest amount of support, to my family and friends who provide nonstop encouragement, to all the surrounding law enforcement agencies, the state attorney's office, and the emergency manager director for your support. It was immediate, without hesitation. To those who prayed for me, for those who prayed with me, for my God above, who has blessed me beyond what I deserve, I have to say thank you with all of my heart. And if it wasn't for any facet of the people that I mentioned, I would not be standing here today. So to all of you, I have to say thank you. I thank you for your trust and for believing in me, something I do not take lightly. I still have 5 or 6 months of hard road ahead of me due to my treatments, so I ask for a little patience. But I assure you, I will be 100% soon. I will make you proud, and I will not let you down. Now, if you'll excuse me, I got a lot of work to do. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, City Manager, and congratulations, Chief. And Penny or anyone else, do we have changes or deletions to the agenda?
I provided you with an amended agenda. There was no content amendment. Just some of the resolutions on the agenda didn't match up with the title of the resolution that Drew reads, so that was just corrected.
Just different numbers?
No different numbers, just adding a few words that, nothing of content, nothing like
Scribner? Okay. City Manager, anything? All right. We'll move on to public comment. Citizens are encouraged to speak, however, comments should be limited to 3 minutes. And if you can, address myself, Chair, and you cannot allocate time to any other speaker. So this is for items not on the agenda. Come on up. And if you can, just start with your name and address for the record.
Good evening, everybody. I am Tim O'Neill, a 15-year resident of Flagler Beach, 2252 South Central. Mr. Chair, reason for my, I hate speaking in public. I get nervous. Reason for my speech this evening is short-term rentals. I had an experience where I inquired with the city through the online process about homes in my area, South Central. It turned out all 3 of them were not authorized to be short-term rentals. It seems like this is a growing problem, and I don't think anybody's clear on what our policy is, or people are even made aware of it. We all know that Flagler Beach is in transition and growing. We're going to have a new city here real soon. I remember the old days, and those days are gone. However, the issue of rentals, especially they're called B&B or B2B and that kind of thing. I've got people, staff doesn't have the time or resources to follow up. I was given this. I am not looking to get into an adversarial situation with my neighbors, but I don't even think my neighbors know what the rules are, more or less how to follow them. And I would think that we need to make our policy clear. I've been told it stops within the first, 14 blocks or something. But I would look to the council to go, how do we address this issue? I think it's getting worse, and I think it's going to continue to get worse. And I'm also told that real estate people tell potential buyers, you should buy because you can open a B2B yourself and help pay for your property. So I think it's clarity. And I would like, since the state passed what statute 509.023, which removes a lot of authority we had, if we move to clarity about what the rules are on short-term rentals, I think would benefit everybody and move us in the right direction. Thank you.
Tim, you referenced some type of letter or something there.
This is my email. I got. I called. I talked to Richard, who gave me to Jerry, who gave me to Michelle. All very professional staff, nice folks, knowledgeable. This was my closeout. My alternative was to go on the record and complain to about my neighbors, and I don't want to do that. And in this day and age, filing sunshine law, he'll know I did it. And I'm not looking for that. I don't even think they know what they're doing. But I do know they just spent thousands of dollars adding more units to rent. And so this is an ongoing issue, and I'd like the commission to put their noggins together and see what we can do. Because if I'm up here speaking, which I don't like to speak in public, I'm not the only one, trust me. So I appreciate your time and attention to the matter. Thank you.
Anyone else for public comment? Items not on the agenda.
Good evening. Rich Phelan, 255 Ocean Palm Drive. I actually have a couple of things, and I've talked to a couple of commissioners on this. Recently, well, I say recently, about a month ago, the city manager provided a answer to questions that were submitted to him. These were issues that were raised by Mr. Bellihumer. I was just wondering what the commission plans on doing with the this document that was supplied to you. And then the other thing I wanted to talk about was in the last meeting, and I couldn't attend the last meeting because I'd guess, but the last meeting, Mr. Bellihumer, former commissioner, came up and complained about a drainage issue on his property. I had no idea what he was talking about, but the city manager twice said, you know, has the property owner done anything to remedy the problem himself? I said, well, this is kind of strange. I'll go take a look at that property, see what he was talking about. And I see that the road has been raised, and the road is actually, I think, partially attributing to the problem. The swales on that road are pretty much non-existent. One looks like it's been filled in, and stone's been placed and raised that person's property even more. So the water is actually guiding down the street, and some of that water, of course, is going to Mr. Bellihumer's property. And I'm kind of disappointed that the city manager's response was, well, you know, twice. He said, what has the property owner done to remedy it? Well, the property owner came to you and said, hey, can you do something about it? And evidently nothing's being done, and I don't think that's fair. So that's my comments. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else for public comment?
Crystal Nobry, my address is confidential. So I was wondering if you guys notice what I noticed the first thing when you enter the city. No, it's not the hotel, it's not our beach, but it's our bridge. Has anyone looked at the state of our bridge lately? And I know approximately 5 years ago, I think, it was pressure washed and left in the mess that it kind of currently stands in. So kind of been doing some research. I know it is DOT owned, so there has to be some standards to it. But I feel like we have an obligation to our city, since this is a gateway, whether entering or leaving the city. Suggestion, to no cost to the city other than perhaps permitting, but wouldn't it be really nice to have local artists display their art? Get with the art clubs at the high schools. We have FCC, we have Matanzas, we have First Baptist Christian, we have multiple middle schools that all have art youth clubs. They could submit it, you could approve it. We could work with fire police volunteers who could assist with the safety of the painters during this project. I did review the DOT permitting, and if it is the same as normal painting, which I'm sure that our city engineer would be more familiar with that than myself, they do have a one-stop permitting for it. There's a site, you just include those plans that would be painted, the safety protocols, the traffic control plans, and sometimes they do require a pre-application meeting. But other than the permitting process, if these art clubs are doing it, there's no cost to the city to make our bridge beautiful. I also looked into the method of the surface control operations, and I do believe that they meet the DOT standards for application and containment. I'm sure there's more to it than just my idea, but I just kind of would love to hear your thoughts on what we could do to change our bridge appearance, since it is not the best and up to date right now. Thanks.
All right, thank you.
Mark Emhoff, Flagler Beach's grumpiest old man, 261 Ocean Palm Drive. I just was thinking about the Airbnb situation. I'm just going to go the other direction because I do a lot of traveling, and I can never understand why that was a big deal here in Flagler Beach, that we can't rent out rooms or our houses. If people are probably just call the cops on them. I mean, most people, plus there's a rating system. You guys all know this. I'm sure everybody in the room knows this. If you mess up at someone's house, you're gone. And every time I've stayed in one, Midori and I, usually the people that are around those houses are pretty friendly, and it's part of the experience is actually going there and meeting the residents and the people that live there. It's just the attitude of the people in the city. And sometimes I think the population that's in the city sometimes is a little bit on the HOA side, like the people that are in the condos down the road from our house. I don't know, just kind of mind your own business, but when he was talking about that, I want to say the other side of that is I really don't see too much what the big deal is, about renting out your own personal property. And thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Good evening. Keith Kessler, live off of 9th Street South. I did send an email earlier this week to all the commissioners about what I'm going to address. I'm going to read the email right now out loud. I'm writing to you today to express my concerns regarding the current ordinance governing oversized vehicle parking on city streets. The email has been prompted by recent overnight parking of converted school buses. Specifically, I'd like to propose an amendment to the existing rules to prohibit overnight parking of oversized vehicles on city streets between the hours of 12 a.m. and 6 a.m. or a reasonable time frame. While the current regulations may address camping or living in oversized vehicles, which is prohibited overnight, the mere presence of oversized vehicles parked overnight on narrow streets presents several ongoing issues for our community. Public safety, large vehicles often obstruct the line of sight for drivers and pedestrians, especially near intersections and residential driveways. Emergency access. Our streets are already narrow, and oversized vehicles can significantly hinder the passage of emergency response units like fire trucks and ambulances. Residential character. The long-term presence of these vehicles impact the aesthetics and residential feel of our neighborhoods. I believe that a clear, enforceable ban on oversized vehicles overnight parking and a clear definition of what qualifies as an oversized vehicle is the most effective way to ensure the safety and quality of life for all Flagler Beach residents. I do know from experience in talking to a Flagler Beach police officer who came from Phoenix that in relation to one of these school buses that was parked for almost 3.5 days on 9th Street, that their only option is to ticket them after 48 hours and with a notice, and that they have 48 hours additional to move or they'll get towed. And then what they do, obviously, is just move to another street, and the 48 hours goes again. So if there's some opportunity to enforce or change the ordinance to cannot have the vehicles there for certain hours, then the police will have enforcement. And that's what she was saying, our hands are tied, basically, to be able to do anything at that point. Thank you for your time.
Anyone else for public comment? Items not on the agenda.
Hi, Linda Preventer, Flagler Beach. I wanted to ask you guys if you had any appetite at looking at the ordinance that prohibits utility trailers in driveways in the city. Somebody might have gotten in trouble for having one, but that's not the point. We allow boats, we allow boat trailers, but RVs and utility trailers cannot be in your driveway. They can be behind your house, they can be next to your house, but they can be in the alleyway. That's debatable. I just asked Drew about that. But, I mean, Palm Coast allows utility trailers now. There are still people that work in this town that need to have a trailer. So I know the right-of-ways, keep them out of the right-of-ways. I know we're talking about buses on the streets now, but if you have a trailer in your driveway and it's not in the right-of-way, can we please fix that? Thank you. Oh, and can we please, this is for you too, Lance, get a turn signal on Roberts and John Anderson and 100. That street is just, we're talking about letting golf carts go over the bridge now, but we still don't have a turn signal there for when people are trying to turn onto 100. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for public comment? Items not on the agenda. All right, seeing none, we'll close public comment. And we'll work through a couple of these. We'll just do it in order. So the first one was about code enforcement and short-term rentals, and how to address the issue. And I guess my first question would be to city manager: are you aware of roughly how many code enforcement cases we have right now that we are addressing concerning short-term rentals?
I don't know the number that we have, but there have been several that have been reported, so I know some of them are being addressed.
Okay. And I do know there's a anonymous reporting link on the tax. It's a for tax.
For the taxes, not for code enforcement.
Right. It's not for code enforcement. It's for tax purposes.
We can no longer take anonymous for code
Right.
enforcement.
Yeah. No, this is for tax purposes, but one can assume that if the rental is not following the rules, then they might not be paying taxes either. So there is an anonymous link on the
Property appraiser.
It's not the property appraiser, tax collector site. Yeah, I was tongue-tied on that one. And it's fairly easy to find. It's pretty straightforward, and that at least covers anything for taxing purposes. And that's relatively easy. But as far as code enforcement, it has to be reported with names and information.
It does, but code enforcement does also, observe and look. But part of the problem, I think, with what was heard from code enforcement, having a complainant, while not always necessary in a short-term rental case, always helpful, because the burden lies on the city to prove that it is being short-term rented. And the best evidence we have, the best testimony we have to make that case is often the neighbors, because they are there day in and day out. What I've always told code enforcement is what they're looking for without that, or even with that, to supplement what they have, is you're looking for vehicles coming and going. You're looking for those out-of-state license tags, Florida this week, Texas next week, Georgia the next. So you're building a case, because, and where this is not a Flagler Beach, a solely Flagler Beach problem, this is an across the state problem. We deal with it every place we represent. Even in the places that aren't tourist places now, that's how, just how much in the past 15 years, the short-term rental has spread. The common sense for all of us is, but they're advertising, why can't you use the advertisement? The issue we have there is that's hearsay. It is definitionally hearsay, which we could admit in code enforcement, like a court of law, where you can't get hearsay unless there's a hearsay exemption. We're allowed to admit it, but a magistrate cannot rely entirely on it. So we always have to have more. We can put context with hearsay, but we have to have substantive, non-hearsay evidence also that backs it up, which is where that kind of moving vehicles, and then the holy grail, which is neighbor testimony. So I think that's probably where that came from. One thing I wanted to make sure that was, I think really was the focus of the comment, though, that I think is a really good point, is education. Because that's, I think, the speaker was speaking a lot about education, and just reminding Flagler Beach residents that there is a prohibition on short-term rental in these zoning districts, just to make sure, because we have had cases here and elsewhere where as soon as somebody found out, the response, I didn't know, I'll stop. And so there are those cases. Not all of them, maybe not most of them, but there are those people that once they find out they can't do it, they're more than happy to stop doing it. There really was. They did not know better. So it probably is a good time to think about an educational campaign with that again.
City manager.
I think you and I have had a brief conversation that there is a cottage industry to help communities. The cottage industry is companies have been started to actually help the cities go out and investigate short-term rentals, and then usually there's no cost to the city, but they recover their costs through either the back taxes that are subsequently collected or other enforcement actions. So if you're interested in that, or even I can look at some of those tools that the city could theoretically employ, because yes, we're aware that that there's an issue out there, whether it's the lack of knowledge, whether realtors are just saying, hey, go ahead and short-term rental it and let the chips fall where they may. So there are some tools that we can look at bringing forward to you to consider enforcing those.
Yeah, and I think to city attorney's point, this would be a real good initiative to get some PSAs out there. I don't even know if it would be worth having, whether it be code enforcement or somebody, just send that property a letter saying, is this property potentially a short-term rental? If so, here's the rules, you know, that type of thing. And it would kind of directly address what city attorney was talking about, where you have some folks that just might not know any different. I do want to address, while we're on this, though, the other side of the coin. That was what Mr. Imhoff was talking about. And you have property rights and folks wanting to rent. And Drew, correct me if I'm wrong on this. You can rent your home if it is long-term rental, which is 6 months and a day or more. And that is in all zoning districts.
Correct.
Yeah, okay. So you can do that. It's the short-term rentals which function a little bit more like commercial style purposes. You got faster turn, you got more in and outs. There's more trash, there's more just activity at the residence. And that's why short-term rentals were differentiated from the 6 months and a day or more of the long-term rentals, we'll call them. And that you can do. And Penny, do you need special permitting for long-term rentals or anything? Or okay, okay, got it. So there's things you can do with your property, but it's just relegated by time and usage of the property, and that's just the bandwidth for what, you know, the city has decided is okay for residential areas versus tourist commercial, regular commercial, and just separating the areas out for different purposes.
Cannot get that permit, single family in particular. If you are not grandfathered in, you cannot get one.
Right, you can't do short-term rentals in residential unless it was before that got enacted. Okay. All right, so we'll move on to Mr. Phelan. He was talking about the document. There's two things here. We got the document from city manager, and I'm going to leave it to y'all on responding to Mr. Phelan, because it is up to each commissioner responding to citizen concerns and also to public comment if they want to respond. So if you want to give Mr. Phelan an update on what you did with it, I can tell you that what I did with the document is we have meetings with the city manager every week, or at least I do, and I covered that in meeting, and we went through the issues just line by line, trying to figure out, okay, what is this, why is this, and covering all that. But I want to jump to the drainage issue. So the last meeting that got brought up, we kind of agreed as a group that if we have a piece of city infrastructure that's not functioning correctly, we would have staff look at it and address that as needed. Is there any update on that? Have they been able to get out there and look at it yet or anything?
Actually, it turns out a small berm was actually installed at that alleyway entrance last year. The city engineer's gone out and looked to see if any enhancements need to be made with that. So, yes, staff's been out and looked at that and developing a course of action.
Okay, got it. So that is in process right now. All right. Yeah, and any citizens, and for those listening on YouTube or whatever, if you have a drainage problem that is a piece of city infrastructure that potentially is not working right, you know, please reach out and let us know so we can go out and inspect it. The next one is about the bridge, the Snowbrae. It's a great idea. City manager, I want your input on this. We have a potential project coming that will involve moving all of those barriers, I believe. And I was thinking if we're going to be moving the barriers, we could probably get FDOT to replace them. But I don't know where the project stands, because you're going to do some lane shifting. I don't want to really talk about all that's the golf cart.
There's no barriers being moved as part of.
So you won't have to move the barriers with the golf cart piece? They're all staying, you're just doing.
Adding barriers. That's the concept.
Okay, so it's just getting added.
Pie in the sky still. Discussions with FDOT where they haven't said no yet.
Right.
They've expressed great hesitancy or concern, but they have not said no. But there are no barriers being moved.
So the tiger stripe barriers, for lack of a better term, which is what they are now, those would end up becoming interior barriers, correct? And you would have potentially new ones?
Correct. You have the two external barriers which prevent people from going into the river. And you also have one other barrier that separates the pedestrian sidewalk from traffic on the westbound side. Those are the only 3 barriers right now, and the median barrier.
Right.
Those are the only 4 barriers on the bridge right now. And I
Right.
think Mr. Obrey is talking about painting the traffic-facing barriers on the outermost edge of the bridge.
Correct. But if the golf cart experiment goes through, there would be new barriers put in place?
Correct.
Okay, so we kind of have to let that play out first and before we, because if you
And
paint,
again, we're talking to FDOT. We have so many conversations going on with FDOT. I can add this to the mix and say, hey, how do we go ahead and do it? Because maybe you could paint the center barrier, or the barrier on the south side of the bridge. Those might be possibilities to start with.
right, yeah, I'm just worried about we paint it and then we immediately, a couple months later, put new barriers there and you won't be able to see
Those
it.
other 2 barriers are not part of the conceptual plan for golf carts.
Okay. Do y'all like the idea just to get a consensus on, are we okay with that?
Doesn't hurt to ask.
Okay.
Yes,
So-
I was just going to add to that too. Right, you were up here when we had, it was a fiasco when we had the bridge pressure washed, and then they ended up needing to be painted. Remember, it was supposed to be $30,000, and then it magically came down to $15,000 out of the blue. So yeah, I'm open to it, but I think before, if we go through and have the high school kids go and actually paint it, we probably need to get that primed first, because pressure washing is not the solution. Actually, I think what ended up happening was they pressure washed off paint, right? It wasn't
Right.
actual.
The paint was breaking down.
Yeah.
In addition to being covered with soot and salt and everything, and right, I just want to make sure that the barriers that are there are not going to end up getting changed out through any of these movements with the bridge. It'd just be a shame to have murals put on them and then you're taking them down or moving them and who knows what. But it was a great suggestion, and City Manager, you have a consensus up here that, if it's possible, move forward with that body's okay with it. Let's see, we got Mr. Kessler, the oversized vehicles parking on city streets. So, Chief, I'm going to give you first shot at it. We're gonna have you start now.
I'm in. Well, if it's not boats on my beaches, it's buses in my streets. We know about this problem. The owners of the 2 buses that we're talking about know the rules, and they're, for lack of better words, playing the game. They know when to move them so that we can't take enforcement action. As I spoke to the gentleman in the back of the room, we've already proposed language a couple days ago to the city manager that would give us a little bit more teeth. Now, that language would have to obviously go through legal review, but we were looking to change an ordinance to give us the strength and the teeth so that we can enforce these right away or not have them at all. And if they do pop up in our city, there's something we can do right away.
Okay, so we already have a proposal on the table, so that would be potentially on an upcoming agenda?
Absolutely, right.
Okay, that's easy.
Thank you.
Not bad for the first task, right?
I'm sure they'll get
Yeah, goes downhill from here. Okay, so we got a potential ordinance change coming up. Next one, another potential ordinance change. Mayor Linda P. was talking about a change to the ordinance to allow utility trailers. Appreciate the definition. So, how do y'all feel about that? It's worth looking into?
I think it is because, under utility trailers, you also have such things as what I have. I've got a kayak trailer, which resembles one, and there's a lot of that. We're an island over here, and the signature of a utility trailer compared to some of those items that are prohibited is very small, and I think it's worth looking at. I think we have enough residents here who would have that problem, and I just don't think it creates the problem that those that are prohibited do. I think the utility trailers are getting caught up in this unnecessarily. Is my view.
Right, caught in the crossfire. Mr. Santori?
I mean, on that note, could we look at maybe boat trailers too? I mean,
Those are already allowed, yeah. Marine trailers are allowed. And the mentality back when that passed, I was around, I think Commissioner Sherman, were you around then? But it was, we live on an island, so definitely, boat trailers. Okay, so do we have a consensus to look at potential verbiage for that ordinance change?
Yes.
All right. Okay, that's easy enough. And then a turn signal on 100 and John Anderson. That chief, that's probably going to be up your alley on that one. Just nudging FDOT on that, because that is the 100 route. So we don't, now in Lenape, we don't have a whole lot of control with that one, but we do have leverage with city manager and with chief both working with FDOT to get that request in, which will probably then have to be studied and, FDOTed. All right, that wraps up all the info on public comment, and we will move to consent agenda. Under consent agenda, we have minutes, and those minutes are from, we don't have a date on those minutes, April 9th. Is the minutes? Are those the only minutes, Penny, just April 9th? I think that's all I saw. Then the other item is a one-year insurance proposal for the pier. Does anything need pulled or any comments on consent agenda? Drew, do we need public comment on that since it has something more than minutes?
Yes.
Okay.
On item B is the one that if there's public comment, you need to take that.
All right. Well, I'll look for a motion first on consent agenda.
Motion to approve.
Second?
All right, we have a motion and a second. I'll open this up to public comment. Any public comment on consent agenda? Seeing none, we'll close public comment, bring it back up here, and we don't need to do roll call, so all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimous. Move on, general business. We have a presentation on the FY25 audit. And we just lost our financial person.
Not a good sign.
If you could just introduce yourself.
Definitely. Good evening. I'm Brendan McKittrick, a partner with James Moore and Company. Appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight to present the financial statements for the city, as you mentioned, for fiscal year end September 30th, 2025. I do have the PowerPoint presentation, which really summarizes the items I want to touch on tonight, kind of going over the financial statements themselves. But before I do get into that, I did want to thank the Commission for the opportunity to perform the audit again this year. Also want to thank Holly and her staff for all their help. We ask a lot of questions, a lot of requests, so appreciate everything that they do to get us here to this point. One thing we like to remind the Commission is that these financial statements are the city's and your financial statements. However, as auditors, we include certain audit reports included in your financial statements. The first report being your audit report in the front of your financial statements. This is where we express our opinion really over the reliability of those numbers you're looking at in your financial statements. We don't have what's called an unmodified opinion or a clean opinion. It's really kind of the best opinion we can provide over a set of financial statements. The second report is the federal single audit report. So the city did have grant expenditures exceeding a certain threshold, so we're required to do some additional testing. If we had any issues noted with that testing, we would include it in this report, and as you can see, there's no findings in that report. The third report is the report on internal controls and compliance report. So as part of our process, we're required to look at internal controls with respect to financial accounting and financial reporting. If we identify any issues, we would communicate those issues to you all. There's different levels of severity with regards to what those comments are communicated. The kind of the highest being material weakness. We had no material weaknesses to communicate, but we did have one item called significant deficiency. So still something important enough to communicate to you all, having to do with really our audit adjustments. So as part of our process, if we have material audit adjustments, we're required to communicate that to you all. This year we did have a few audit adjustments, so that's what really creates this comment. But just to give you a little bit of context and comparability, last year we had about 9 audit adjustments. This year we had about 3. So again, kind of trending in the right directions with regards to our procedures. The next report is the Chapter 10 550 report, or Management Letter to the Auditor General.
There's some more required communication that the state asks of us, and included in that, there's an area where we can provide recommendations, not necessarily in internal controls, but for financial management. So you'll see here on the slide, the first item just indicating there was a comment we had last year that's been remediated regarding fund balance and net position opening balances. And then there is one comment that's called a repeat comment related to your really building permits. So a few years ago, the state issued a statute indicating that cities and municipalities not have a carry forward balance really in excess of the operating expenditures for that building permit department, really looking at it the past 4 years. So again, that requires that we communicate that to you all. Management does provide a response in the back of your financial statements, just indicating, hey, what the process is for you all moving forward to really remedy that. And then the last report, the accounts examination report in the back, just indicating your compliance with specific state statutes. So moving over to the numbers, your general fund, just as a reminder, that's the main operating fund for the city. This is looking at your fund balance based on the various categories you all have. Overall, pretty consistent. Biggest change being your committed fund balance, and that has to do with the resolution you all passed for an emergency fund balance or emergency reserves, which basically sets aside a certain amount for those emergency situations. But overall, total fund balance pretty consistent with last year. Now these numbers, I'll flip to the next slide. We'll look at these numbers as it compares to expenditures and transfers out. So the assigned and unassigned fund balance, we compare that to expenditures. And really, the benchmark we look at is the Government Finance Officers Association, or GFOA, recommends a minimum of 2 months, or about 16 or 17%. You can see this year it's at about 30%, but there's kind of a piece here that I kind of mentioned that committed fund balance. So the idea is with this percentage, thinking about what you have in reserves for emergency purposes. So really, that committed fund balance isn't included in the 30%, but if you were to do that, which would make sense in this situation, it would be closer to 55%. So pretty close to what you had last year as a percentage at 60%. And then just some other highlights. You do have a CRA as required by the state. You do also get a separate audit report for the CRA. Again, if we had any comments, we would communicate that to you all, but we had no findings. And then on your business type funds, so this is your enterprise or proprietary type funds. This is just looking at the unrestricted net position of your 4 enterprise funds. Biggest change being your pure fund, which had a significant amount of grant activity as well as some transfers as well. One thing we like to say with enterprise funds is the numbers here is kind of half the picture. The other half is the infrastructure for those funds themselves. So continue to invest in that infrastructure. You know, when you think water and sewer, you've got replacement costs and, you know, repairs and maintenance and things of that nature. That being said, for FY25, the city did have about $6.2 million in capital asset additions. So again, continue to invest in that infrastructure. And then the last slide here, just highlighting you all do have 2 pension funds, your police and fire pension. You hire an actuary to perform a calculation, so it includes certain information regarding those funds that are included in your financial statements. So as part of that process, there's a net pension liability or asset that's calculated, and with that, the kind of funding percentage. So really looking at what that actuarially calculated number is compared to what the investments and contributions are, and that's how you get these numbers. So again, you kind of see the 3-year trends for both the police and fire there. So with that, I will stop and open it up to any questions. All right, any questions for our presenter? All right, good. Thank you. Appreciate it. General comments?
Good job.
Holly, any comments?
Put me on the spot. No, James Moore was great to work with. We had some impact fees that moved out of the water and sewer, which I'll explain in the quarterly financials. I think it was very smooth. We had our preliminary audit in October, so that sped up the process quite a bit. And then we did our final audit in December, and everything else was just kind of flowing through, so it went very well. So.
All right. Any questions for Holly?
Okay.
All right. No action on this. Drew, we don't have to do like a formal acceptance or anything?
you normally do a motion to accept the audit.
Okay, I'll look for a motion on that.
Motion to accept the audit.
I'll second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. I'll open this up to public comment. Any members of the public wish to speak on this agenda item?
Hi, Rich Phelan, 255 Ocean Palm Drive. I really just want to show my ignorance here. So this is on page 17. It shows of their report. They show the enterprise funds here in the city, and I thought the building department was also an enterprise fund, and I don't know if there's any others. I was just wondering why that was not in this page. That's my only question. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else for public comment on this agenda item? All right, seeing no one will close public comment. Holly, you want to take that?
Yes. The building fund is actually a special revenue fund, and that's housed in the general fund. It's not a proprietary fund.
All right, thank you. All right, so we have a motion and a second. Penny, if you call the roll, please. Oh, wait, do we even need a roll call on this? All right. All in favor of this, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimous. We'll move on to Resolution 2026-04. Drew?
You have your financial report, I think.
Heck, I skipped right over that. I thought you were done. Sorry, we'll go to FY26 Quarter 2 financials. Sorry about that. I'm skipping over half your job there.
All right. Yeah, it's kind of just trailing on to the audit. So this is the Quarter 2 financials. So essentially this is tracking from October all the way through March, but I call it Quarter 2, January through March. But it's cumulative since October through March. Again, this is just structured like the audit, so you have 1 year prior where we were, and then the next year over through 3/31/26. This first page just encompasses the general fund and building fund. I'll just go over a couple highlights. Nothing alarming. I did update the beginning fund balances now that we have the audit complete. So the estimated undesignated fund balance is fairly accurate. It's always fluid, but it's not like how it was until we got the audit completed. I think the largest significant change was we moved out all the governmental impact fees that were in 402. So we had the police, we had the fire, we had the library and recreation, all are now under the general fund in its new fund 199. So that's what that last revenue line is on the top section. We don't have any expenses yet because we're still building the balance for those impact fees. And then, as you saw in the audit, we have a lot of fund balance. A lot of it's restricted. Some examples of restricted fund balances are like paving. We have some for park improvements. We have some for street lighting. We have the tree bank one. All of it's outlined, I think, fairly new in the audit within a few pages. So larger fund balance, but a lot of it is restricted. Revenues are outpacing expenditures, which remain well controlled, generating a 3.5 million estimated surplus at quarter end 2. Moving on to CRA. CRA estimated ending fund balance, all that is in restricted as well. In the audit, it shows it's reserved for like capital projects, but they do restrict the undesignated fund balance in this fund. Revenues are at 76% of the budget, which is mainly driven by property tax revenues, which are performing basically 100% of the budget. You'll see that the expenditures are always pretty low in this fund until we get to year end, because the big transfer is from this fund to the capital fund to fund all the CRA projects. So you always see that revenue's a lot higher, which brings to a high estimated ending fund balance, but that's not really reflective because of the year end transfers we do. Capital Reserve Fund, this is the fund that just houses all the capital projects for the governmental funds, which is General Fund, CRA, and the Building Fund. These are all funded through transfers from those 3 funds. You can also log any donations we get for assets for capital projects here. Any grants we get associated with capital projects would also go here. So this will always show a negative ending fund balance until we do the transfers at year end, because we generally only transfer what we use or what we budgeted in the budget. The next pages are just a snapshot of where all our current projects are for the governmental capital projects. Green means good, project's done. Blue means it's on the commission agenda, and yellow means it's in progress. So lots going on with capital stuff in the city. The utility and impact fee fund, that's our first enterprise fund. That's funds 401 and 402. Nothing significant here from the year prior. Fund balance of $45.6 million reflects the utility's overall financial position, including operating results, reserves, and timing of just capital and financial activity. Nothing more significant than that. We do have a lot of capital projects happening in that fund. Sanitation fund revenues are at 50% of the budget, tracking ahead of prior year due to stronger charges for services that we're collecting. So those are a little bit further ahead than the year prior. And then the fund balance increased $2.23 million, reflecting operating results. Capital costs are recorded not in this fund, but on the balance. They're on this fund that's on the balance sheet, so that's why there's a difference. Which there's a report coming up that'll show you guys the status of expenditures on the balance sheet for these funds. Stormwater fund, those revenues are at 51% of the budget, which is mainly driven by solid charges for services collections exceeding the prior year timing, because we had a little rate increase on stormwater, so that's why it's a little bit higher than the year prior. Capital projects too for this fund are also reflected on the balance sheet. And the peer fund, as mentioned in the audit, there's a lot of change in fund balance just because we have a lot of grant revenue and line of credit funds going in there on the large peer project going on. That's why the fund balance is so drastically different from the year prior. And the Q2 enterprise capital update, same project in progress is yellow, green is completed, blue on the agenda, so lots going on there. And the last page is the snapshot of the cash and investments, kind of where all the cash is. As a reminder, I said last quarter, Truist officially closed in December, so we're just using PNC. We have SBA and then SMIDT, which is the bond funds, and then the police pension investments, and then fire. Are there any questions? No? Okay.
Questions for the finance director? Mr. Santori.
Yes, thank you for the presentation. I have one question on the capital report project. This is on page 147, project 567. The paving and sidewalk showed it was $53,000 over budget.
I think that might be one of our budget amendments where we're moving some of it from, it was in the budget when restricted, and we're going to move it to unrestricted.
Okay.
Yeah, and that'll be a budget amendment that I do when I update that.
Thank you.
Yep. That's why it says BA to cover overage.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what that means.
Any other questions for the finance director? Drew, do we need to accept this?
You can if you want to, but you do not need to, and I don't think you normally do. You just hear it.
All right. No other questions? All right, that was easy. We will move on now to resolution 2026-04. Drew?
Resolution 2026-04, a resolution by the City Commission of the City of Flagler Beach, Florida, amending Resolution 2025-76, fiscal year 2025-2026 budget for adjustments to revenues and expenditures, providing for conflict and providing an effective date.
All right, city manager, do you want to intro this, or is this going right to finance director?
I can do it. These are just changes that have occurred from the adopted budget back in September, effective in October, to projects and changes to the budget that have occurred in the first 6 months of this fiscal year. And all those changes are identified as part of the resolution.
Finance director, do you have anything specific on this we need to cover?
Yeah, highlights is just like I just mentioned, the impact fees. We're moving those out of Fund 402 and moving them to Fund 199, which is now going to be part of the general fund. So we've got to move that budget And then we're just moving some of the salary contingency budgets into the budget since those positions have been filled on some of them. Reallocating some of the operating lines, and then moving from restricted to unrestricted is just freeing up some of those budgets to cover the fire command vehicle and police cars. And then we have to do another entry to release restricted reserves to cover the Roberts Road and John Anderson highways now that those projects are moving forward.
All right. Any questions or comments about this? No? See none, I'll look for a motion.
Motion to approve Resolution 2026-04.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. We'll open this up, public comment. Any members of the public wish to speak on this agenda item? All right, see none, we'll close public comment. Any further discussion? Any, if you can call the roll, please.
Commissioner Santori?
Yes to motion?
Commissioner Spradley?
Yes to the motion.
Commissioner Sherman?
Yes.
Commissioner Cunningham?
Yes.
Chair Cooley?
Yes, the motion. Motion passes unanimous. Next item. We have a code enforcement request. City manager, are you taking us to that one?
I think, I don't know if you want to handle it, Drew, or Penny, you've been dealing with the applicant.
City attorney? Or Penny?
Is the applicant here?
We had been in contact with her by email, and she had an unexpected family emergency, and her flight was delayed to come back. She didn't think she was going to be here. She was going to try to get someone to appear for her, and I advised her that it was possible the commission, I asked her if she wanted to move it to another meeting. She did not want to do that, and I said the commission may not take any action if there's no one here to represent the request.
So I think with that, if there's nobody here, then the most any of us can tell you is what's in the request itself. This isn't something that the city is bringing forward. This is a request coming from the respondent. What I would say based on my review, they're looking to do a short sale, which is why they're asking what they're asking.
Correct.
If it's in foreclosure, it's a reminder to everybody that foreclosure, that mortgage is ahead of us in interest, so that bank gets paid first. So it's with the code enforcement lien recorded in February. If that were to sell for exactly or less than what the mortgage value is, city's not getting anything out of that. So.
And from my understanding, it wasn't quite in foreclosure yet. This was the title company requesting this. The SBA asked them who they're getting their loan through, and they requested, they asked the city if they'd be willing to consider a reduction of the fines and fees and the liens. And the summary I provided to you shows that as of today, there are 2 utility liens on the 3 properties, and the total amount due for that is $15,863.09. And for the code enforcement lien, which was applied for an international property maintenance violation for the pool, which was inspected visually the best they could today because they can't go on property, and it appeared to still be out of compliance. And that total fine is $17,301.46. If the commission were to consider providing some type of relief, we would recommend that you do not provide any relief for the utility liens because those are simply pass-through costs. These are expenses the city has already expended. So they are owed, including the interest, which our loans for our utility plants and other infrastructure are based on interest we would make off that money in the bank, so those should not be waived either. For the code enforcement lien, I mean, the goal is compliance, so there are some pass-through costs that the city has already expended for that, and if you were to waive that code enforcement lien, the pass-through expenses for that is $1,100.20, but again, the applicant is not here.
Just finish by saying this is completely discretionary. It's up to you guys. They're not bound to do one thing or another.
So, first question, the applicant, we'll call it, the person bringing this forward, is it the current property owner
No.
or the
it was
potential property owner?
So the potential property owner and the applicant who filled out the paperwork and who I've been corresponding with works for the title company. So it's the closing agent. And the SBA, the buyer's lender, the SBA, requested to see if there was any leeway to get a reduction.
So the current property owner and the potential property owner, they are not the applicants for this. This is,
It's the title company for the purchaser.
got it, all right. I just want to get that answer before we open this up for discussion. Okay, and I got some thoughts on this too. Go ahead, Commissioner Spradley.
Yeah, I mean, my thought is, if money is owed, and if it's as easy as just saying, give me a pass. I mean, and that's what this is. I mean, the city would be taking a haircut on this. These expenses, these fines are provided for under the law. I see no reason to, essentially punish the residents, who would be the ultimate beneficiaries of these fines, by just giving a title company a break so that they can more easily sell the property or have a transaction close. So I would be against any break at this point, particularly since the applicant is not even here to tell us why it would be a good idea. Thank you.
Commissioner Sherman.
I think Commissioner Spradley kind of summarized kind of my thoughts on that.
Commissioner Santori.
I agree with Commissioner Spradley too, but for the code enforcement aspect of it, are we willing to pause it for 30 days while the sale goes through?
The code enforcement case itself is wound up. All that's happening now is the fines are continuing to run as that violation stays out of compliance, and that's a matter for the magistrate. So that's not actually, just like he can't release lien once it's created. You guys can't control what happens in the case. So those fines will continue to run based on his order.
And I'm sure that they cannot correct the code enforcement issue because there's no water at the property, and I'm assuming no power either to get that pool up and running again.
Mayor, do you have something or no?
I'm in agreement with Commissioner Spradley.
Yeah, my thoughts are along those lines. Isn't it great when you're a company, you can just go to the government and say, hey, make my costs change? And I bet that title company is not changing any of their costs. So that's disappointing. And I guess and that's why I started this whole discussion with, okay, who is the applicant? And is this because sometimes when folks are trying to get into a property, if there's any type of cost savings, that money then gets put into the property, and you potentially as a city can work out something where you take a blighted property and you make it better and it benefits the whole city. It does not appear that this is the case.
This is not that.
All right, so I am not hearing any consensus on moving forward with this? All right. Do I need to call for a motion, Drew? All right.
There is no motion, there is no action. You do not need a specific motion to deny.
Yeah, and I'm not seeing that. So, no action taken. We don't even need public comment on this, and we can move on. All right, next item. Resolution 2026-28. Drew?
Resolution 2026-28, a resolution by the City Commission of the City of Flagler Beach, Florida, amending Resolution Number 2025-70, providing for a temporary reduction in certain building permit fees to 25% of the adopted fee schedule, providing for a sunset of reduced fees, providing for conflicts, and providing for an effective date.
All right, City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As the auditor indicated, we are gradually getting more into compliance with the state statute that says you cannot carry forward. There's a threshold for fund balance that you can carry forward in the building fund. We had previously reduced the building permit fees. You adopted the fees as part of the annual budget. We reduced those to 50%, and we still have a high threshold. We're still above the threshold, so we're recommending that we reduce the building fees to 25% of the current adopted fee schedule.
All right. Any questions or comments for City Manager? Commissioner Santori?
Yes, I noticed there was a typo in the resolution title, and it says FES instead of fees.
Any other questions for City Manager or comments?
So this is 25% more on top of the 50%, right? So it's 75% total now.
Correct.
What it originally was, okay.
Correct.
And I brought up in discussion with City Manager, I was concerned that this was a little too aggressive. However, this is to get us in compliance, and then these fees can get changed at a later date, as the city has that need.
Yeah, we'll be presenting to you again, as with the budget, we'll be presenting to you a fee schedule, and whether that's a reduced fees or whether we want to change the fees themselves. But there is a sunset provision in this to go away as well. So we keep tracking it and make sure that we comply with state statute.
Right. Yeah, and I was just worried about the pendulum swinging too far the other direction. So it's a good safety net for that. Further discussion? If not, I'll look for motion. Did you have something, Commissioner Santori? Okay, go ahead.
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2026-28.
Second the motion.
Now we have a motion and a second. We'll open this up for public comment. Any members of the public wish to speak on this agenda item? All right, seeing none, we'll close public comment. Further discussion? Danny, if you call the roll, please.
Commissioner Spradley,
Yes to the motion.
Commissioner Sherman,
Yes.
Commissioner Cunningham,
Yes.
Commissioner Santori,
Yes to motion?
Chairman Cooley.
Yes to the motion. Motion passes unanimous. All right, we'll move on to item F, Resolution 2026-32. Drew?
Resolution 2026-32, a resolution by the City Commission of the City of Flagler Beach, Florida, approving the revised scope of services and fee proposal from Mead and Hunt, Inc. for the South Central Water Main Replacement Project, Phase 2, South 3rd Street to South 19th Street, authorizing execution of the task order, providing for implementation, conflict, and an effective date.
City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is continuing the South Central Water Main Project. Commission had asked about how far does it have to go. The original thought was that we would extend the water main, replace the water main all the way to the southern limits of the city. We've revised that at Commission's request as to how far is the asbestos concrete pipe, and through the analysis that goes as far south as 13th Street. 19th Street. So this is to do the design work down to that area, and in future years we'll replace that once that project is designed. And as indicated in the report, south of 9th Street, the existing water main is outside of the pavement, so that will be a significant benefit to replacing that water main. It's not under the street as it was in this part of town. We're looking for approval to move forward with the design through Mead and Hunt, and then construction will begin in future years.
All right, discussion. Mr. Cunningham.
Yeah, I thought the last time this came up, I'm seeing on here we're doing a reuse line that's gonna be dry for however many years. I thought we did away with that. We're just focusing on the potable water only. I mean, how many years is it gonna be before reuse is going down Central to a line that'll be dry? That's not good. Be dry. It'll end up not even holding water anymore. It sits dry too long.
How long can that last? Dry.
4 or 5 years, 4 O-rings and gaskets dry out in the joints, then it's no good. Placed a bunch of them. Whole developments.
Further discussion. Commissioner Santori.
Yes, so I see in the proposal the window closed for April 6th to approve. Do you know that if it's approved today, that it will still go forward?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
I noticed in the proposal,
Oh, from Mead and Hunt?
yes,
Yeah, yes, if it's approved today, it'll still go forward.
okay. So I see that Mead and Hunt's going to be giving us the bidding assistance for only South Third through South Sixth. Will we be bidding the rest, or will there be separate charges for Mead and Hunt to bid the rest?
There will be separate charges in the future, so, we currently are gonna budget for Third Street to Sixth Street. However, in future years, as we go successively further south, that's when we will budget those portions for the bidding assistance.
Did you say future years, or?
Yeah, so for right now, we're looking at Third through Sixth. In order to go down to 19th Street, whether we do that in 1 year or 2 years, it will depend on our budget and how we break that up.
Okay. And then my last question is, can you walk us through, like, the specific Phase 1 lessons learned and point to the Phase 2 scope where those changes appear? Because I know we had some issues with water lines breaking, and, you know, we spoke about ways to prevent that in the future, and it was a while ago, so I don't remember, but was that incorporated into the scope?
So once construction begins, one of the things we found on this first phase was that there are a lot of water lines that were kind of unknown. Some of them are older, and they are very touchy due to that. Some of the water lines that broke were, they weren't even touched. They just, whether it was vibration or whatever it might have been, they broke just due to that. And then there was one that broke because the contractor actually hit it. So as we head further south, we do suspect that we'll run into the same situation, unfortunately. We do our best to try and update our maps. However, there's always some unknowns due to the fact that we just have a lot of old infrastructure under the road. Some other things that we dealt with on this one, we had a lot of things going on as far as city events. There was the centennial event going on, so we did a lot of opening the road, closing the road, opening the road. We did that a number of times. We won't be dealing with that on this project as we move forward. So those things shouldn't be an issue.
Commissioner Cunningham pointed about the reclaimed water lines. I mean, is there a way we can run that to the right of way, like just shortly, and then in the future, if we need to run it further, we can keep it in the right of way instead of replacing all of it underneath the road?
So portions of the pipe that we currently have, particularly within the CRA district, so anything that is further north of 9th Street, we've got the current pipe happens to be under the street, and we also have some curb and gutter, we have sidewalk, we had a lot of things that are above the pipes in those sections. Once we reach 9th Street, we believe that we will be, for the most part, out of the street. So once we get further south from 9th Street, that's where we'll have the ability to actually install that pipe, and that's one of the things that we can work with the designers, make sure that pipe stays outside of underneath the asphalt in a location where it's just grass, to where we could easily decide yes or no on whether we install it at the same time we do the water line or just do it at a future date.
Mr. Chairman. Yeah, just kind of going off of what Commissioner Cunningham mentioned about these dry lines, I think we're running into that, correct me if I'm wrong, Commissioner Cunningham, we're running into that issue on the west side right now with that new development, correct? There's no water running through the dry lines. So over there we have a viable solution, right? We've got we've got lines that are going to be running from the wastewater treatment plant, and we'll be able to have water running through there. We still don't have a line that's going to be running over to this side of the bridge. What's our plan to get water in those pipes temporarily until we have a long-term plan of getting reclaimed water over to the island? I mean, I think I'm not an expert here in this matter, but hearing what Commissioner Cunningham just said, takes what you said, quick 4 years, and those things are starting to rot out. And I mean, that gives me a little bit of heartburn to hear that for our taxpayers. So, we go and put these pipes in and then they're ineffective if we don't get any water running through there. So what's our plan to make those pipes wet?
So what I can do is I can have a discussion with the engineer of record, Mead & Hunt, and we can see whether or not there's a plan that we can work out as we do our phase two and just alleviate that issue.
Okay, thank you.
The only thing I got in city manager, you mentioned this is going in the side of the road in the right of way. And I didn't see that in this.
South of 9th Street, it's not under the pavement. From 3rd to 9th Street, the water main is under the pavement as it was in the first phase of the project. That's the way the water main had been added to the city or installed in the city years ago.
Right. But we don't have to put that back in the street. We can put it on the side right away, could we not?
You probably run into more problems because the buildings are all at zero lot line in the CRA district between 3rd Street and 9th Street.
You think that would be more problems? Because we had a lot of problems running in the
Well, I
street.
think, as Mr. Freeman said, a lot of the problems were the fact that poor records had been maintained and there were other intervening events. And yeah, those are lessons learned. We have the ground penetrating radar now. As we've opened things up, there have been other water main breaks unrelated to this project, that we've had the opportunity to see some of the areas that are underground. But with the building so close, you'd end up having to, if you want to be not in the road, you're going to be in the sidewalk, and that's a different set of problems.
Right. Disrupting a sidewalk is a lot less, volatile and disrupting an entire road, though, is, I guess, my only concern.
I guess my only concern is you're also a lot closer to the buildings and having an impact on those buildings. Let's use Commissioner Spradley's office, for example. He wouldn't be, his access to his business would be limited if we tear up the sidewalk and dig the trench in front of his business.
He volunteered for that. The other question I have is on the timeline. So, kind of threw me a curveball when you're talking the timeline. You're talking years. What is the timeline? Can you take us through that timeline again?
So in the next fiscal year, we would like to go from 3rd to 6th Street. Now, as we move further south from from 6th to 19th, it's whether we do that in a 1-year or a 2-year process. It's going to depend on our budget. So I can't say for certain whether we do that in the, would be the 27, 28 fiscal year or the 28, 29 fiscal year. So it's either going to be a 1 or 2 year process, but it's going to just depend on our budget. They put a rough order of magnitude budget of 4.4 million. So if we can't budget 4.4 million in 1 year, then we'll have to break that into 2.
And the last thing I got is on this purple pipe. My understanding is the intent of we're putting in purple pipe where we're doing this, and the intent is to get that to the golf course for reuse. Is that the intent, to shoot it down central for that?
That's an opportunity because we need to find the users, and we've been continuing to have discussions with a couple of engineering firms is, what is the viability of purple pipe? And, do you also start, do you recalibrate everything and start looking at injection wells, which, the discussions with them are, you're talking $8 million just for a test well, and that may not work. We've started down the path of the purple pipe, and that is a big user. Veranda Bay and Summertown have said they take purple pipe, they take our reuse water, but this is a challenge that's not just Flagler Beach. The communities are across the state, and it's fine when you're in the middle of a drought, you may have easy demand for reclaimed water. But what happens when you have 4 or 5 days of rain in a row, and we have to get rid of 700,000 gallons of water a day? People aren't going to need our reclaimed water for irrigation systems. So in this area, I think what Mr. Freeman has said is the part that we have to put under the road, let's put it under the road so we don't have to dig the road up again. When we go south of 9th Street, I think that's going to not be under the pavement, and it'll be easier to say, do we want it in now, or it's less bothersome to add it to the right-of-way outside of the pavement south of 9th Street.
That's where I was going with that.
Right.
I have concerns that with this purple pipe, as far as getting it to the island side and utilizing it on the island side, I don't know if the juice is worth the squeeze on that. That's a massive expense. You got Veterans Park, you got some other places you can use it, but it is extremely expensive to get it down to the golf course, and with the hopes that it would get used, versus Summertown, Miranda Bay, and also we keep not bringing up that the county has the massive the thousands of acres that they're doing for the eco center, and you have all kinds of big water going back there.
And we've actually, Mr. Freeman's approached St. Johns River Water Management District about, can we use the purple pipe to recharge some of the wetlands? And unfortunately, their answer is no, because those wetlands eventually flow to the intercoastal, which is what we're being directed. And again, some of this we're not doing this because we think it's a great idea. We have to do it because the state is mandating that we have to get rid of this water somewhere and again, I'm still somewhat baffled behind the purpose of, we've been discharging the sewer effluent in accordance with all the safety standards for decades, and now we can't. So every day, we have to get rid of 700,000 gallons of wastewater, and it has to go someplace, and that's what the purple pipe is for. And there's some other options we can continue to look at, and we have until the end of 2031. So yes, the recommendation would be, yes, put the purple pipe in, and maybe there's a way to address Commissioner Cunningham's point. Maybe there's a way we can make some sort of temporary connection, at least flood the pipe, and have it filled with water for a short term or something like that. But the part that's going to go under the pavement, I think it's imperative that we actually do that now, so then we don't have to come back, if we continue running the purple pipe southward, to tear up the pavement.
And this item is for all the drawings, engineering. This is not for the project.
This is only design only.
Right.
And bidding assistance. Yeah, bidding assistance from 3rd to 6th Street.
Right. Yeah, purple pipes can be, quite the topic. And I really think Eco Center is a viable option. I keep bringing that up, and because they're going to have these huge man-made style ponds, lakes, whatever. I'm assuming, and I don't know, but I'm assuming you can probably use reuse for those. I don't know if you can use it to sprinkle. Or
if they're ornamental, you could. But remember, we've got a neighbor to the south that's probably producing 2 million gallons of reuse water that they also need to get rid of.
Right. Fun times with reuse. All right, further discussion. Look for a motion.
Make a motion, we approve Resolution 2026-32.
A second. We have a motion and a second. I'll open this up for public comment. Any members of the public wish to speak on this agenda item? Seeing none, we'll close public comment. Further discussion? All right. Penny, if you call the roll, please.
Commissioner Sherman?
Yes.
Commissioner Cunningham?
Yes.
Commissioner Santori?
Yes to motion?
Commissioner Spradley?
Yes to the motion.
Chair Cooley?
Yes, the motion. Motion passes unanimous. Item G, Resolution 2026-33. Drew?
Resolution 2026-23, a resolution by the City Commission of the City of Flagler Beach, Florida, approving the proposal from Freese and Nichols for the Palm Harbor Drainage Improvements Feasibility Study, authorizing the city manager to execute the task order under the Continuing Services Agreement, providing for findings for funding and an effective date.
City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is the Palm Harbor Drainage was actually #1 project on the McKimmon Creek study. So this is to do, which that study gave us an overview of it. This study will then now offer more insight as to how to actually fix the drainage with taken the survey, you expressed interest in having more surveys done as we move forward with these projects. So this is to do a more detailed analysis of how to move forward to address the flooding that is the number one project for stormwater in Palm Harbor.
And I guess, just let me jump ahead before we get into discussion. So, in that's like the number one question I got. So, we had the Mead and Hunt study done and identified a lot of things. I guess my question is, wrapping my head around, we had that big study done. Is that not enough information to give us a moving forward point that we don't need to do this study? Because we did a study that identified this. Then we're going to do another study that identifies more stuff. You know, can we eliminate this step and move forward with the suggested improvements that Mead and Hunt had? Did they not give us enough information to move forward with those changes? Does that make sense, kind of what I'm asking? Yeah, I worry about that. And I guess, and again, I'm not a subject matter expert in this, so just, you know, if y'all could help from a layman's point of view, help me understand why we would need this level of study as opposed to just moving forward with the one we had originally.
So the original study that was done by McKim and Creed, some of the things it did not include are actual surveys. What they did is use LiDAR information, and they did a lot of other background investigations. However, they don't actually have any surveys. So one of the things that we need to do is we will actually obtain the survey ourselves and then move along with this proposal to have them analyze that data and actually come up with some options. During the study, there were some options that were proposed. A lot of it dealt with installing curb and gutter along the entire length of the road throughout the project area, install asphalt pavement where the dirt road is currently, install collection inlets, and install conveyance piping. And they had an estimate somewhere in the neighborhood of $4 million. And so one of the things we just wanted to look at as well is that going to be the best option? And that was based on, as I had mentioned, it was rough information then, so we just want to get better information because this was the number one cited project, so we wanted to make sure we had better information, which we'll actually get some surveys, and with those surveys, we'll know for sure if we can really see how everything flows and where's the best place to take the water. And that's what they'll do. They'll give us two probable areas or probable designs of what we can do as part of this feasibility study.
All right, discussion. Commissioner Santori.
Well, I mean, it definitely is number one on the list. It appears to address the 5-year nuisance flooding in that area for stormwater issues, and it does, you know, it's a shame we have to spend more money on more consultants, but it is the number one project, and I don't see how else we can go forward without doing it.
I agree.
This side of the room. Commissioner Cunningham.
We're not talking about everything that's south of where the bridge is, right? That already has Miami curb and gutter?
No, we're talking about we're not talking about the subdivision.
Because that's Palm Harbor, on Palm Drive.
There's Palm Harbor, there's Custer's Palm Harbor, there's numerous places have similar names. So we're talking about, there's Pine Street, Oak Street.
These are the older homes? Yes. Right? Yeah, the low-lying area, which does flood all the time.
And Magnolia Street. So it's everything north of where the canal is, and it's south of Palm Avenue.
Yeah, it does go underwater. Okay.
I'm just hung up on the studies, though. I know. It's a tough one. So is this, city manager, maybe you can help me out. Like, is this normal? Like, when we move forward with all these tactics from the big study that we're going to have to do lower level ones?
We may have to, when we first introduced it, if I remember correctly, a couple years ago, when we first proposed doing something and we saw that this was the Palm Harbor, and as Mr. Freeman said, the McKimmon Creeds had put Miami curb and gutter and paved that area. The response from the dais, and I can't remember exactly who was here and who wasn't here, was we don't want to put Miami curb, and paving that is probably the worst thing you could do because it'd be an impervious surface. And so this is an effort to say, yeah, the McKimmon Creed study said, do what we said, and it's a $4.5 million project. Well, if we spend this money, we maybe come out of there, and we talked, Mr. Freeman and I talked about the open cell pavers that we talked about doing on Oak Place. Would this be a satisfactory option as well? And so this might steer us in that direction. So yes, we would need the more data to have an alternative to otherwise, okay, are we just going to, there may be cases where we don't need it through the McKimmon Creed study, but this is probably one, since it is a no motor project, and $4.5 million is an awful lot of money to spend for what is relatively a short stretch of road. So this is a hopes to develop alternative plans that we can move forward and address that.
Got it. Any other questions or discussion?
You said you're going to have a survey first. We're going to have a survey.
Yeah, I have to go
Get
get,
the company, right?
I have to go get a survey. The city will have to get a survey. So we have somebody under continuing contract that we like using. We like to use a local surveyor, and they give us a good price. You know, we don't have to pay the overhead of having this company hire their own surveyor, so we just go direct to them.
Yeah, that's the most important item to solving the problem of why it's flooding, is having your survey.
Right.
That's why I've been harping on survey.
But that brings up a confusing point, because when I originally asked about doing this, the number one response was so we can get survey data is why we were doing this study. So other than options, what is the exact thing this study is going to be looking at if we're doing the survey?
So once we get the survey, they're going to look at, and they have in their so there's going to be some project management involved with it. They're going to have some meetings with the residents as well. They're going to do some. They're going to take the survey, coordinate that, and they'll run some modeling, and they'll come up with a couple options of what's the best way to solve our flooding issue in that area.
Yeah, so this is to give us different options of how to move forward or something like that. All right, just trying to wrap my head around that.
Motion to approve resolution 2026-33.
I'll second the motion.
All right, any other discussion? Open this up, public comment. Any members of the public wish to speak on this agenda item?
Mark Imhoff, 261 Ocean Palm Drive, beautiful Flagler Beach, Florida. Yeah, just being, the ignorant citizen, I thought we hired a engineer that was an expert in all this, these fields of drainage and sewage and et cetera. And so just as a taxpayer, I'm kind of wondering why these guys can't work this out without spending all these tax money on to you guys' point, like why do we have all these, especially thank you, Commissioner Cooley, for kind of going through what I was thinking. If you've already kind of done the survey, I don't understand why we can't do more of this stuff in-house because of the expertise that we have, the equipment that we have, and the staff that we have. I don't know why we're hiring Mead and Hunt, and then on the next one is Palm Harbor. I know that's probably got to come up for that, but that's just kind of my question. Why can't we do things more with the resources we already have instead of all these surveys and stuff that always cost millions of dollars? Thank you.
thank you. Anyone else for public comment on this agenda item? All right, seeing none, we'll close public comment. City manager, I'll let you take that one. I mean, my understanding is it's just the scale of the project. If we were to have one person work on this, that would be a huge bandwidth, and we have so many projects going on right now. This requires a staff to work to expedite it.
Well, it's not just that. It is the technical equipment that's needed to do this to the extent that we need to have it done, so we have the plans to go forward, whether it's the LiDAR, whether it's the soil maps, doing all the research, and things like that. So yes, we do have our Public Works Department is basically a 3 or 4 person shop with the project manager and Mr. Freeman and Dr. Richards and Mr. Isaacs. So that's the department staff, so we don't have the staff capacity, nor do we have the specialized equipment and access to that type of equipment to do this project moving forward.
All right, further discussion. Commissioner Santori.
I'm curious, I mean, what would it cost to have a team or a person that could handle that, and the cost to rent the equipment to get us through these projects? I mean, granted, this one's about 30,000, but you know, all of them added up. Is that an option?
I think the technical aspect precludes that. To rent the kind of equipment, I'll admit I'm kind of unaware of that, but I don't know what the cost to have a private provider or the equipment to do LiDAR surveys or things like that. It'd probably be more than $35,000.
All right, further discussion. And if you can call the roll, please.
Commissioner Cunningham.
I'm gonna have to say no, not another, study. We've had enough. That's the one that was just done. There's been several before that even.
Commissioner Santori.
Yes to motion?
Commissioner Spradley.
Yes to the motion.
Commissioner Sherman.
Yes.
Chair Cooley.
Yes to the motion. All right, motion passes 4-1. And we'll move on to Resolution 2026-34.
Resolution 2026-34, a resolution by the City Commission of the City of Flagler Beach, Florida, approving the rehabilitation and polyurethane structural lining of lift station number 4, lift station number 8, and pump station number 8 through an intergovernmental cooperative purchase utilizing Engineered Spray Solutions, LLC, authorizing the city manager to execute all documents necessary to effectuate the work in an amount not to exceed $98,878.05, providing for severability, providing for conflicts, providing for an effective date.
All right, City Manager.
These are manholes that were included in the capital project plan. So the staff is moving forward to address these 2 lift stations and 1 pump station.
Any questions for City Manager? Commissioner Cunningham.
Yeah, I do. How were the wet wells evaluated to make this determination that they needed to be spray lined?
So first we had our staff on our utility maintenance crew go out there, take a look at it, and then I went over there, took a look at it myself to look at the conditions of the sidewalls, and you could see from the hydrogen sulfide that they have definitely deteriorated. The concrete is spalling, and it needs to be coated in order to protect it and have it last longer.
So you pumped it all the way down to the bottom and was able to see all of it?
Yes. So when they clean out the lift stations, at those times when they do that, they'll pump it down, and then you can see everything.
You got any pictures or video or anything?
I don't have any on me, but I can provide some.
I'd love to see them.
Sure.
I'd like to see it in person, actually. Next week would be fine with me. All of them. Whoever decided that they needed to be done, I'd like to see it. So whatever works for you.
Sure, we can arrange that.
Okay.
Commissioner Santori.
Actually, I think just to comment on what Commissioner Cunningham said, I think I'd be interested in some of that information too, like whether there was photos or video, if there's any data from smoke test, dye test, and just several different things. So I'm willing to, I would like to personally table it until we get some more information on that topic.
Further discussion?
I know we had flow meters. Do we also have flow meters out around anywhere?
We did have some flow meters out.
Was it on any of these three?
I'd have to look at the locations. I can't tell you right off the top of my head.
And we have all the data from the existing flow meters that are in place now, right?
We do have that data.
I'd like to see that too. That's it.
Anyone else for discussion? The only thing I got is, none of these are ones that have already been done previously, right?
That's correct.
Okay, and when this happens, does the company have any type of guarantees or anything like that, or how does that work as far as spraying this will extend life by this much, or, you know, how do you quantify that, or is there an expected lifespan for this product?
They do have a warranty on that. I'd have to verify what that is. But typically, whenever they spray this solution onto the walls of the wet wells, it's a whole new lining, so you won't see the existing concrete. And they've got a thickness of, they specify a thickness on there. I have to look and see what that is. 250 mils. And it's a 5,000 psi high pressure. Water cleaning is what's done first in order to make sure they have everything cleaned off the surface, and they go ahead and spray this application on there.
That's good info. And, you know, just to piggyback on what y'all were talking about with the pictures, it'd be good just for, you know, the whole checks and balances, just to have like before and after. I'm sure the company does it. It'd be good if we just had it in case, you know, taxpayers are going, hey, you know, what is this? Was it done? Does it work? That type of thing. I know we've done a lot of these, so I'm definitely not opposed to it. But, you know, having some photo documentation would work. And just while we're going through these packets, I wanted to point out city manager and Penny and everybody else, the new data that's in these packets as far as, you know, what this body requested. It's nice. So you got a lot of really good data in here. So kudos to y'all and staff for the additional data. It's been very helpful, at least understanding it, and also for us being able to explain it to citizens too. That's all I had on that. Just making sure we're not redoing ones that I worry about. We do these and we pay all this money and, you know, they fail. But if they got a guarantee and they've held up well, and
are they leaking? Is it being infiltration?
There are a couple of them that have some leaking.
the ones that are leaking, how old are those? Or when you say they're leaking, the original are leaking, or the ones that have been spray lined?
No, we're talking about the ones without a spray lining.
Okay. All right, I've heard table it. Is there any other thoughts on, do we want to move forward and continue pushing forward with stormwater?
I'd like to see it.
See
them next week, see them, look at them.
Before you vote, you'd be in favor of table.
Yeah, I would favor tabling also.
Any other thoughts otherwise? Motion or no?
I'll make a motion to table it.
Yeah. If we're going to table it, we do need a motion, right? Okay.
There you go.
I second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. We'll open this up public comment. Any members of the public wish to speak on this agenda item?
Rich Feeling, 255 Ocean Pond Drive. Again, I just want to show my ignorance. I think it was a month ago, you had a presentation on a gentleman who's going to rebuild pump stations for $1.9 million each, something like that. I didn't know how this related to that. And my other question was, what's the condition of the pumps in these wells? Once you spray, the lining, if you have to remove these pumps and the pumps, rub up against the walls, then you're going to damage the walls. So, shouldn't we be looking at what the condition of the pumps are first before you do the spray lining? That was it. Thank you.
Anyone else for public comment on this agenda item? All right, seeing no one, we'll bring it back up here. First thing, are you going to respond to it?
No.
All right. Look,
Go ahead,
once
respond,
we, city manager, I guess, if just for the audience and everybody involved, this project versus the grant for the hardening, differences in that layout.
Yeah, I'll probably have to have Mr. Freeman answer as well. I think this is not, the hardening is to elevate and have other protections for the wet wells and the lift stations. This is actually the interior of the wet wells.
That's correct. So the wells that we're talking about,
These would not be part of the grant project, correct? None of these?
so of the three, there is one that is on that project. What we're talking about here is just a lining. So the lining of each one of them, we're talking about approximately $32,000 per wet well to line them. And the one we're talking about that's also part of that grant, what it is, it's a loan. So it's actually a SRF loan with a 50% forgiveness. And that included hardening of the wet wells. There was raising the lid heights, redoing all the panels, the pumps, and then there was a lot of there was a drainage component to that as far as the streets within the surrounding areas, upgrading the streets, the drainage. So there was a lot more to that project than just rehabbing a well. What we're talking about here is just it's relining the inside of the well so we can get some longevity out of them. But there is one of the wells on here, which is the one at 1728 Windsong Circle. That was also on the bigger project.
Got it. Mr. Freeman, also, there was a comment about, the pumps and, is there a risk of them damaging the lining or anything like that? If you could respond to that while you're up there.
So if we're going to reline them, we're going to have the pumps replaced at the same time. I'm not going to reline them and not have a good pump in there.
Got it. All right, thank you. Mr. Spradley, you had some.
Yeah, I was just going to say when it comes to tabling, my subject matter knowledge on this particular item is hovering around 0. So I defer to Commissioner Cunningham's desire to see photos, and if he feels that would be valuable to us, then I'm all in.
I do believe that.
Okay.
So my only question about tabling, and city manager, city engineer probably need to rely on you for this. Is there any risk of tabling? Like, is this time sensitive? Do we have issues that need addressed that they have to be spray lined now, or can this be looked at a future meeting in the near future?
No, we have enough time to bring it back at a future meeting.
Okay.
Like the next meeting.
It could be the next meeting.
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to make sure there wasn't anything time sensitive in there that we needed to consider.
No.
All right. Further discussion? Anything, call the roll.
Commissioner Santori?
Yes to motion, table?
Yes.
It'll to table.
Yeah, that's
Commissioner Spradley?
Yes to the motion.
Commissioner Sherman?
Yes.
Commissioner Cunningham?
Yes.
Chair Cooley?
Yes to the motion. Motion passes unanimous. So this will get tabled and hopefully brought back next meeting is at least a request. All right, we'll move on to Resolution 2026-35. Drew?
Resolution 2026-35, a resolution approving the location of 6 grounding beds associated with the DC Block Data Center project, providing for severability, providing for conflicts, and providing for an effective date.
City manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to clarify, in discussion with DC Blocks, this is for only four grounding beds, not 6. And the 4 are to be placed within the right-of-way on South Flagler Avenue, south of between 5th and 7th Street, on the west side of the pavement. And we've taken what DC Blocks wants to put in place, shared it with Sun Trail people, and there's no conflict. And when the commission previously approved the agreement with DC Blocks, there was a condition in there that the placement had to be in the right-of-way and it had to return to you for final approval. So staff has reviewed it. DC Blocks has provided survey data. So staff recommends that you approve this resolution. And this is only for the work that they're going to do from 6th Street to the grounding sites. It has nothing to do with coming ashore with the undersea cable. So this is only for the work from 6th Street through the rights of way to get to the Flagler Avenue right of way to put in their grounding beds.
Yeah, Commissioner Sherman.
When, did we get paid yet?
No, payment is due when they pull their first payments, and that's
Okay.
$600,000.
Correct. Okay, that's what I have here too. Okay, that's all.
They're gonna be getting permits for all that, right, from the city?
I think they've received their core permit and some state permits, but there is one other state hurdle that they have to overcome because some of that property, and this is related to coming ashore, this isn't related to the grounding beds, but they need to, since some of that beach property that the city owned was purchased through a state agency, we need to get permission from the state, and Ms. Overstreet and Mr. Freeman have worked at the state agency. I reached out to Representative Greco, because Ms. Overstreet's been working for several months on this, and from what we've been told, the state will consider the application on May 13th to bring it forward, because it's unique in that we can't make improvements to the area that we bought with the state, but it's been a challenge to express to the state agencies that this line is 30 feet underground. It's not something on the surface that is going to affect the easement otherwise. So we need their sign off on the use of the ground underneath the property that we bought.
Where are the grounding beds gonna be?
On the west side of South Flagler Street, north of South 7th Street.
Where the maintenance shop is?
No, south of the maintenance shop.
In that dry retention area, detention.
In the right of way, not in the dry retention area. Still within the
In the city right away, okay.
Yep.
Well, and that's something I had a question about, is when you look at the drawings, it does not look like they're in the right of way. It looks like they're in the dry retention areas, for all of them, even including the ones that are in front of the water tank. I'm not an expert at reading designs, but I guess city attorney, is there a way to put in this that it stays in right away and does not?
Section 2 of the resolution, the city commission hereby approves the location of the DC Blocks grounding beds in the South Flagler Avenue right of way.
Oh.
Yeah, and I guess none of y'all got the actual pictures in front of you. The way the pictures are drawn, they look like they're right in the middle of the dry retention areas. I guess city manager, if you can just work with them and make sure that they don't have a different idea of what we have.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that was my biggest concern. Further discussion on this?
Motion to approve resolution 2026-35.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. We'll open this up, public comment. Any members of the public wish to speak on this agenda item? All right, seeing no one, we'll close public comment. Penny, if you can call the roll.
Commissioner Santori,
Yes to motion?
Commissioner Spradley,
Yes to the motion.
Commissioner Sherman,
Yes.
Commissioner Cunningham,
Yes.
Chair Foley.
Yes to the motion. Motion passes unanimous. Move on to 8A, ordinance 2026-06. Drew?
Resolution, ordinance 2026-06, an ordinance of the City Commission of the City of Flagler Beach, Florida, amending the comprehensive plan future land use map designation for approximately 2.943 acres of certain real property with Flagler County parcel ID 29-12-32-000001010010, generally located interior to the property known as the Ocean Palm Golf Course, providing for severability, providing for conflicts, providing for an effective date.
City Manager.
Ms. McClendon is here to share. This is the first reading for the future land use map amendment for what is often referred to as the donut hole at the Ocean Palm Golf Course.
Thank you. This is a small-scale future land use amendment. The applicant and the owner is the city of Flagler Beach. The location is 3600 South Central Avenue, and the request to amend the future land use from high-density residential to recreation aligns with the city's comp plan and also aligns with the city's vision to maintain the golf course as non-residential and recreation only. So staff recommends the City Commission approve the future land use amendments for 2.94 acres of high-density residential to recreation. Thank you.
Any questions for City Planner while she's up here? All right, discussion. I had a question for you, Drew. Does this affect or have any impact on the property owner wanting to put what is essentially a commercial building in there?
No, as long as it's recreation.
Got it. And that question came up before, and I did not remember the answer. So if you have recreation property, you can put...
Recreation does not exclude commercial. It just means that to the extent it's commercial. For instance, and this was, if we go back years, when we were, I don't know if it was before the original lease or when we were going through litigation, there were concerns that, you know, you could put a for-profit dirt track back there. That would be recreation. So for-profit, or recreation does not exclude for-profit. It just means that even if it were for-profit, it has to be recreational for-profit. And so if you have, like any golf course, which is a recreation use, golf courses that have clubhouses, yes, you can say those clubhouses are commercial buildings, but they are ancillary to that recreational use. They are still a recreational use, even though they are commercial. They're not mutually exclusive terms. But McDonald's, for instance, would not be recreation.
Okay, good info. Any discussion? All right, look for a motion.
Make a motion to approve Resolution 2026-06.
I'll second the motion.
Ordinance 2026-06.
I'll second that motion.
All right, we have a motion and a second. I'll open this up, public comment. Any members of the public wish to speak on this agenda item?
Mark Inhofe, 261 Ocean Palm Drive. I just have a question for the legalese on the last little bit. It says providing for severability, conflicts, and effective date. I just kind of need to hear what that actually means.
Severability means that the court of competent jurisdiction, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut off. I know you're in public period. You want to wait until the end? Okay.
Okay.
All right, thank you, Mark. Any other members of the public wish to speak on this agenda item? All right, Drew.
All three are standard terms. You see it in every resolution and ordinance that gets done. Severability means that if the court of competent jurisdiction were to find some flaw in an ordinance, that the court can strike that piece and not strike down the whole ordinance. So that's giving your intent that if there's a problem somewhere, that a court can strike that piece instead of striking the whole thing. Providing for conflicts means with a future land use map amendment, you're not going to have conflicts. Typically, if you would have conflicts, it would be in general ordinances or land development regulations, where, for instance, if you change your code, let's go back to the first public comment, and you were to change your code to allow, in 2026, you change your code to allow recreational trailers in driveways. If there were some older ordinance that was still in the code that nobody was aware of, got missed, that didn't get changed, that still prohibited the recreational trailers, The conflicts provision says that the newest ordinance trumps. So what you're doing today trumps anything that might hold over from prior ordinances. So that's what the conflicts provision is, and the effective date provision is just says when does this take effect.
All right, thank you. Further discussion? Penny, if you can call the roll, please.
Commissioner Spradley,
Yes to the motion.
Commissioner Sherman,
Yes.
Commissioner Cunningham,
Yes.
Commissioner Santori,
Yes to motion.
Chair Cooley.
Yes, the motion. Motion passes unanimous. Item B, ordinance 2026-09. Drew?
Ordinance number 2026-09, an ordinance of the City of Flagler Beach, Florida, amending Article 5, Development, Design, and Improvement Standards of the City of Flagler Beach Land Development Regulations relating to utility services, amending Section 5.03.02, deferment of charges due to broken water lines, etc., to provide for credits or adjustments in utility charges under certain conditions, establishing procedures for determining eligibility, calculating and approving adjustments, creating Section 5.03.43, data logs, to provide for the collection, transmission, and review of water meter data, providing for authorized access for inspection and establishing water meter data collection, transmission, and review procedures, providing for codification, severability, conflicts, and for an effective date.
Thank you. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have both Ms. Harlan and Ms. Nobre here. This clarifies and provides some additional direction on how we can issue leak adjustments, and then also exert or implement a cost for continued data log requests, which occupy city staff time, and that's identified on page 284. Customers can still they're limited to 3 occurrences within a 6-month period without charge. So only upon their 4th request in a 6-month period would the charge be incurred.
Questions for City Manager or discussion? All right. Look for a motion.
Motion to approve ordinance 2026-09.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. We'll open this up to public comment. Any members of the public wish to speak on this agenda item? I see no one will close public comment. No further discussion? All right, Penny, if you can call the roll, please.
Commissioner Sherman,
Yes.
Commissioner Cunningham,
Yes.
Commissioner Santori,
Yes to motion.
Commissioner Spradley,
Yes to the motion.
Chair Cooley.
Yes, the motion. Motion passes unanimous. Item C, ordinance 2026-08. Drew?
Ordinance 2026-08, an ordinance of the City of Flagler Beach, Florida, relating to littering regulations, amending Chapter 14, offenses and miscellaneous provisions, adopting more stringent littering regulations, restricting the use of plastic and metallized party decorations outside on public properties, providing for penalties and enforcement, providing for appeals and payment of citations, providing for conflict, providing for severability, and providing an effective date. And if you'd like, I can start with the introduction, Chair.
Yes, sir.
If you remember, this is some of the recommended template ordinances that Mr. Reynolds has provided to the city and has been requesting consideration of. He is unable to attend tonight because of a prior engagement, but he and I have been in communication, and he has seen this, made some comments, and we've had some back and forth revisions. And so this does include all of the revisions from Mr. Reynolds. As to these 2 issues, it's not a part of this, but I did tell him I'd mention it tonight because I also explained to him why it was not included here. It would be a separate ordinance anyway, but one of the other suggested ordinances he has provided for consideration is regarding the business owners and the rights of way, and business owners doing more to police and pick up garbage that falls on rights of way. I explained one that it's a separate subject, so it would come in its own ordinance, but also explained that you guys were having other conversations on rights of way. So I would bring it up to you tonight, but I didn't know if you wanted to leave that item for future discussion, or if you wanted to go ahead and do that part of rights of way, we could certainly do that, but I explained to Mr. Reynolds why I wasn't pushing that issue yet, because I know you have other conversations going on with that right-of-way maintenance issue. So this does not include the business maintenance of rights of way that I know has been discussed in the past, and I think has been a little bit more of a sticking point in some of the conversations. So this just deals with the enhanced littering enforcement and penalties, as well as the metallized and the plastic and metallized party decorations on public property. This is not controlling what somebody does with those decorations on their own property, but metallized and plastics on public property for events. So like if somebody has a special event and they're using those metallized or plastics, that's when that would kick in. As an example.
I think the safer bet would be to have the business discussion part probably under that ordinance.
Well, it's because that's imposing an obligation on businesses, where this is creating littering standards. Right. Both. That's why these two fit neatly together. That, no matter what the timing of it is, it should be its own, because that's doing, while it's still dealing with litter, it's doing something different, which is creating an obligation on businesses.
All right, discussion. Mayor.
This would include the beach, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
I love it in theory. I'm putting myself in the place of, I'm a bride. I'm having a wedding on the beach. I have an arbor. I cannot use non-real flowers in my arbor because they might have plastic in them. I'm just
Is that what it
having a
says?
thought.
I didn't see anything about flowers in here.
The use of plastic.
It's not, there's nothing specific to flowers, no, but it would be, depending on what the material that it's made out of, and if it's plastic flowers, if it were fabric flowers, for instance, and so the metallized and plastics was new, and once I started working on this and just did my own, amateur research into what this issue was, that's one of the jurisdictions, the organizations that are encouraging these types of ordinances, as well as the jurisdictions that have been adopting them. One of the findings that we're making, I think there's actually a whereas clause in here to this effect, that there are alternatives. There are fabric flowers, for instance. If you want fake flowers, there are still fake flowers that don't incorporate those plastics into them. So I think that would be the response to that comment, is that it's not saying you have to have live flowers, it's just saying you can't have the plastic flowers.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
You bring up a good point, Mayor. Because if you look at, lines 141, and on down, prohibited decoration item means any plastic-related or metallicized decorative material, product, or article designed for use for celebration, display, or ornamentation. That is very broad. Yeah. Right. I mean, yeah, or a plastic sign, that
Canopy.
What's that?
The tent canopy.
Right.
Tent canopy probably not, because this is limited to decorative material.
I get the intent. We don't want glitter, confetti, all this litter. We don't want that. And I think those lines probably stray into an area I know I wouldn't be comfortable with. I don't know how y'all feel about it. I didn't even have that highlighted. I didn't catch that on the first run. So, yeah, right? If you have a plastic Christmas tree, you couldn't put it
plastic. And that, again, this is actually, I think, what instigated me researching it. That term metallized actually does not mean anything metal. It doesn't mean it can't be metal. It's actually metallized plastic. So metallized actually is also that term is meaning plastic. So it's the glitter coated plastic. That's the metallized.
So if you wanted to,
So a plastic Christmas tree,
Brett, our tree is artificial. It's probably plastic.
Pencil with
the ornaments are metallicized.
in plastic.
they're plastic.
149 says we can't have decorations in any public facility, public park, or public beach located within the city.
Is there a way to just contain this to those?
That's right. That's actually the wheels that are spinning in my head. Is if we limited it perhaps to personal items, because really what, again, just from the ancillary research I did, what these organizations are really pushing against is the party favors, the tinsel, the streamers, the confetti, the noise makers, those kind of things that easily fall to the ground, get swept up into the ocean. So the Christmas tree is not. I mean, that's really not the target of these. So maybe if we kept most of that, but then put a limitation on it, that we're talking about personal items, small items. I don't know exactly how I would wordsmith that, but I'm sure there has to be a way to wordsmith that to limit it to those disposable type. Really, what it's after those disposable type party favors, or we could have, by the same token, we could have not to include if we needed to, or a little bit of both, belt and suspenders. So I think there's still a way of skinning that cat. I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. I understand the issue, though.
Right. We don't want confetti cannons shooting confetti.
Right, and that's really the target of these ordinances.
Yeah.
So, one of the concerns I have about this is who's authorized to enforce it.
Right.
I'm not sure whether lifeguards, who are usually high school students, should be charged with enforcing city ordinances.
Well, then I had highlighted pretty much anybody except law enforcement officer. If you wanted to push it, you could say code enforcement because they're out there enforcing codes. But when you get into building officials, maintenance supervisors, sanitation supervisors, we will not do city commissioners. You could probably put Linda P. in there, though. All right, she'll break out the taser. But, right, so it sounds like...
I mean, just so you know, Mr. Reynolds, you know, where that's coming from, and because Mr. Reynolds and I did discuss that specifically, and the idea there is to have as, because, remember, we've talked about this before, the trick with littering, you have to catch it in the act. And I know there were some provisions in the Marion County ordinance where they're trying to find a way around that. That did not come here because I think there's some significant legal issues with that kind of, your name's on a piece of trash, it must be yours, it must be you who littered it. Which is what they did in Marion County, basically. It created a rebuttable presumption that if a piece of garbage that's on the side of the road has your name on it, the presumption is that's your garbage and you put it there. So that's not here. And so with the intent of that broad, these people can write citations is because those are the people that are likely to be there. Your police officer is going to be out on the road looking for other things, and these are the people that might actually have the chance of seeing that violation to be able to, I saw it, I can write the citation. That was the reason for that authorization. Not advocating for or against it, just letting you know what Mr. Reynolds' thought process there is.
All right, well, let's talk about that piece of it. Where are y'all at on that? Mr. Santori?
On the citation part?
On who gives citations?
I'm uncomfortable with anyone outside the police. I mean, if someone that's littering may have no regard to anything else and could cause an altercation with one of our staff members, then I don't think it's safe or a good idea.
Other thoughts, Mayor?
I would go as far as code enforcement because they issue citations and they're out watching. But beyond police and code, I'm not sure that's a good idea.
Commissioner Spradley?
The code enforcement issue citations or violations?
Code enforcement can issue either. Under state law, they cannot issue either because we have Part 1 code enforcement, which is the magistrate process that we're all most familiar with. But Part 2 of statutory code enforcement is the citation process.
Okay. But I still have the same concerns. Maybe take it as far as code enforcement, but put it on the lifeguards. That would be a hard no for me.
Yeah, lifeguards need to be focused on one thing.
Right.
And as much as I want to say littering's not one of them, littering is not one of them. Commissioner Sherman?
I kind of would be on the same wavelength as the mayor and Commissioner Spradley. I believe code enforcement and law enforcement would be safe. To Commissioner Santori's point, I think things could get a little, catchy there. You have a 16-year-old lifeguard there trying to write a ticket to somebody that might be under the influence or something like that, and people have liquid courage, and our police are already stretched thin enough. I mean, might be kind of poking the bear a little bit with that one.
Commissioner Cunningham?
I mean, they could certainly, if they see something, they could make a call or text to code enforcement or police to come out and address it and write a citation.
That's kind of where I'm at, is, they need to be encouraged to report it, but to have a lifeguard get off the tower and hand somebody on the beach a citation for littering
Someone
while somebody's getting swept out and ripped, sanitation supervisor jumping out of the truck and that's those are not headlines that I don't think we want. And so, all right, so I think City Attorney, kind of where we're at.
I have your comments on that.
I'm just looking further down. Well, let's further discussion. What other callouts y'all got on this, Commissioner Santori?
Any issues with professional fireworks displays?
Any issues with what?
Fireworks.
Like 4th of July, New Year's Eve fireworks displays that, you know, the debris that comes from the fireworks and the multi-shot repeaters that sometimes have foil or tape or plastics on them.
A lot of that is cardboard. They do have plastic on them, though, some of them. But, I mean, those aren't allowed anyways, so.
If it were a formal event, and I think that ties in though with if we make the limitation on how broad we mean when we're talking about the plastic and metallized party favors, I think that falls into that same exclusion. If that change ultimately is made.
Any other callouts on this ordinance? The only other callouts I had is I thought the fines that are in the, 112 through 119 area, I thought they were low. I think if you are going to take a stand and you do a well-written ordinance and somebody gets caught, I think the fines need to be higher.
250 is as high as we can go on the back end of that, so the 250 is still the cap.
On the first one.
Yeah, the question becomes, where do you want to start at?
Well, I scribbled down 250 to start. Because if you're going to do this, let's be serious about it. Littering is a massive problem for our city. It's a massive problem for just the environment in general, but when you look at our quality of life challenges that we need to address, littering from folks coming here or even our own is a problem. It's a quality of life issue. I suggested bumping it up.
250, 375, 500 to keep an even split among the three. Because by the second and the third violation, you're into repeat territory, which puts 500 as our cap.
Yeah, I would go.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
As high as possible. I'll get some headlines for that.
Now, there's just so to make sure you're aware, in 156 through 163, that's for the party decorations. Those were a lower fine category. Again, that was less about littering and more using something that you're not allowed to use. And so it's a different violation. I think that's the rationale on why those two sections of the form ordinances, the supplied ordinances, there's less penalty for the party decorations. If you were littering plastic, like if you were throwing those out as litter, you would be in the first category because you'd be littering. The second category is simply if you were having a function and code enforcement came by and saw you using plastic party favors, they might cite you for that, but you haven't littered those party favors at that point.
Yeah, I was not, the fines that you have in the 150s and 160s, I was okay with those.
Just wanted to make sure that you saw that there were two different fine schedules.
Yeah, who enforces it's probably going to be a challenge with the wording we're going to have to work on. Also, we're going to have to work on messaging too. So, almost all y'all participated in New Year's Eve, and you're going to have a big segment of people that's the norm. That's what you do, is you set off party favors like that, and you do those things. And those are not people that are trying to cause a problem, and they don't know any better. So, I guess city manager, that Chief's here. Chief, why don't you come up and tell us your thoughts on that? Is this going to put you all in a tough spot? Because you're going to have some folks that, are going to inadvertently, they just don't know any better.
This could put us in a difficult spot, especially events like you're talking about with New Year's, when they come from various places throughout the county to celebrate and use these party favors. It could put us in a tough spot. Getting the word out, we could use our Facebook page. We could do, one of the things I was going to suggest is, like the wedding example, can we put a caveat on our application process that they acknowledge this? when they do an application for an event so that we can use that as backup should we find a violation. Here you go, you acknowledge that you couldn't use these things, so I was going to suggest that as well. And I'm also on board with the lifeguards should not be enforcing this. We have a meeting with them before the season of every year. We ask them to be our eyes and ears and call us, let us take care of that. So please don't even consider that one.
Penny, you had something?
I was going to talk about the application process, and also we can do PSAs on Facebook and the website and get information out there as well. I think the difficulty in getting the education out there will be for events on the beach that are not generally go through the special event process. Just gathering of people celebrating a birthday, anniversary, graduation in the summertime. Well, a lot of the weddings we have, they do apply for those. They do call, and we feel them out for information as to whether a permit is needed or not based on what services for safety need to be provided or the size of it. And even in those calls, when they don't require a permit, we could advise them about the ordinance at that point.
Any situation, whether it be through permitting or scheduling, or if it's, pavilion rental, those types of things, anything that requires somebody volunteers to come in and ask the city about it, your educational opportunity is right there with that person. That's an easy one. It's the pop-up events that are going to be the problem.
So let me bounce this off y'all. The first half, we'll call it, of this ordinance addresses littering. Straight up.
Mr. Chairman, just if I could, I would ask that you look closely at lines 102 and 103 in the first half, because when you talk about who can enforce this, basically, been observed by any person, if a piece of litter blows out of your car, you are considered, the owner is considered responsible for it. Any person. So we're not talking lifeguards, code enforcement, we're talking anybody driving down the street can report this as a violation.
Well, and anybody can report it, but Drew, what happens after that? I mean, somebody reports it and it's really not actionable.
It's line 105. It creates a rebuttable presumption. That if the police were to get a report that, and really this isn't so much about the passenger car, this is the dump truck hauling or the garbage truck hauling or something where or the F-150 hauling and without things being properly secured, and the litter or the junk in the back of the truck is blowing out. Somebody picks up the phone, calls the police pull it over, and he says, well, you can't prove that was mine. I have a witness that saw it happen. That's where it's creating that rebuttable presumption. So it's not like that. It's not like we're having the citizens write complaints, but it is, upon that report, there is now a presumption that because it's been reported that that truck hauling that debris was falling out on the road, that has created that rebuttable presumption. That's what those sections are doing.
But honestly, in that scenario, we would probably go state statute over city ordinance.
Which is?
For littering?
Well, how would you approach that if they just say that's not mine?
If they were to tell us that it's not ours and we have a credible witness, we could certainly write that. We could certainly write, as long as we have a credible witness. Now, whether that witness would actually help us out or not or stick around, we could do it.
So Chief brings up a good point. He just mentioned state ordinance. Is this duplicating efforts?
It's enhanced beyond. One, certainly the penalties, the enforcement mechanisms. It is giving more enforcement mechanisms. That is why I call it enhanced enforcement and penalty. Which is what state law authorizes us to do. We can't enforce less than state law, but on this issue, the state has allowed local jurisdictions to go beyond what state law requires.
102, 103 is volatile.
Remember, this is just first reading.
Right.
But I guess my question perhaps to Mr. Smith is, again, focusing on lines 102 and 103, when it says litter, do we define litter anywhere? Because what if I'm driving down the street with my windows open, enjoying the music, and a crumpled up napkin that says 7-Eleven on it blows out of my window? Am I now in violation of littering?
Or is Eric?
Yeah.
That's not in.
That's coming up the next ordinance. So it sounds to me like this needs a little bit of work. And I'm not sure, and y'all can tell me what you're feeling, if we're close enough to even make a motion on it for first reading. Are we close enough or not?
How do you feel, Drew, about the revisions that have been talked about?
I'm clear on the points that you've talked about. I have ideas. I mean, the party decorations, I have ideas. I don't have specific language on who can enforce. That's clear. You know, we pull that down to police officers and code enforcement officers. The fine amounts, that's concrete. That's easy to do. So as to those things we've talked about, yes, I can come back between first and second reading and address those issues. Even with those issues addressed, I'm still seeing a lot of reluctance and faces up there. So I don't know if all of those issues are really all of the issues that you're having, or if those are just simply the issues that you can put words to right now.
Well, they're not for me. So I was starting to say originally, we have two parts of this ordinance. You have the first part addressing littering, and then you have this second part, which is addressing, we'll call it party favors, which is line 140 and down. I have concerns about that part. I get the intent, and I think the intent is good. I worry about a whole bunch of people coming here to celebrate a lot of different things. We'll just take New Year's Eve, for example. They're going to come here, we invite them, say come here, and they're going to do something that most everywhere is just an innocent activity. It's fine, and then all of a sudden, LT over here is going to walk up with his book. Say, here you go, Happy New Year, or something. And I worry about that. I don't know really any way around it.
Can you put a waiver on city events where our staff would be the ones cleaning it up?
Or can we move
Certainly
forward?
could, but I think that restriction of the applicability of it would kind of take away a large chunk of what it's trying to accomplish. Because I think the city sponsored or the city approved events are probably the pop-up events that are going to be the bigger problem.
Well, and this also is more than just party favors. This is all the stuff Mayor brought up. This is your decorations, you know, all the things that go along with your celebration and that we were struggling with at the beginning of the discussion. What if we just did the first half of the ordinance that addresses littering first?
You certainly could. As I'm sitting listening and also thinking, perhaps just table the whole thing for now, table on first reading. Here's my rationale there, because as I said at the beginning, Mr. Reynolds couldn't be here because of prior engagement. He probably can be here at the next meeting, and that lets, because I know that he's very passionate about this, so I'd like for him to have the opportunity before any portion of this gets peeled out. So maybe we table the whole thing, and that way, between now and next meeting, I can put my thinking cap on and come up with ideas to kind of think around some of those corners you're presenting. And at the second, or at the rehearing of first, after the table, you know, we could talk about those ideas and also have Mr. Reynolds in the room too to address some of the concerns you have and to help you think through those from a practical standpoint. So, you know, he's put more thought into these issues than I certainly have. He's more familiar with the practicalities of it than probably any of us are.
Yeah. I like that.
Yeah.
You okay with that?
With tabling?
So this would be a motion to table.
Make a motion to table this item.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Let's open this up, public comment. Any members of the public wish to, well, yeah, we're tabling it. Speak on this agenda item. Come on up.
I wasn't going to let this one go. Good evening. Tony Raimondo, still that aspiring resident of Flagler Beach. I have the dubious distinction of having been a lifeguard on the beach, been a police officer, and I currently supervise a number of code enforcement officers, litter control specialists, and some other folks. And I think you're right to be cautious here. I think the ordinance is good. I think it's well placed. I think you need it. However,
from the code enforcement perspective, we're enforcing property maintenance code. We're looking at a parcel number, a piece of real estate, with a civilian parking enforcement specialist, I can say it, inanimate object, a vehicle. If it's occupied, I won't even let my guys do that. So I think that a person that's going to actively detain somebody and issue them a citation should be somebody that's specifically trained to do that for their own safety. And I do think the ordinance is apropos. I think, yeah, we have a state statute. I codify all the state statutes. The truth of the matter is, if we take these processes and let the state reap the benefits, they're going to get the fine money. If we have an ordinance and a fine schedule where we can do enforcement here locally, we can recoup some of the monies that we're going to lose from other places. I think it makes better business sense to do it from an ordinance than it does from a state statute, if you can do that.
All right. Thank you. Anyone else for public comment on this agenda item? All right, seeing none, we'll close public comment. Further discussion? And if you call the roll. This was a motion to table.
Commissioner Cunningham,
Yes.
Commissioner Santori,
Yes.
Commissioner Spradley,
Yes to the motion.
Commissioner Sherman,
Yes.
Chair Cooley.
Yes, the motion. Motion passes unanimous. Staff report, City Attorney.
Just one yesterday, the Mr. Noble's petition to challenge the annexation was dismissed. So that is gone. Any questions? Effect-wise, does that put the issue to bed? That would be the one question that any of you might be thinking, or the one I guess that any of you might be thinking. Yes, because you couldn't, as I explained to somebody yesterday, you can't refile because they filed that on the last day they could have filed it. The time now is run, so that does put that issue to bed.
That was the case that Mr. Tanner was involved with?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, the challenge to the annexation.
Got it. All right, City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, I'd like to thank all the restaurants for their participation in the second annual community dinner. I'd like to community backing, the restaurant participation, and the staff support. We'll review the efforts and talk about it with the participants and get ready to move on to the third annual dinner, which is currently tentatively scheduled for April 17th of 2027. Which is, we're going to try to make this a tradition on the third Saturday of each April, which more or less coincides with the city's birthday. So, tickets aren't for sale yet, but they will be. The event, we have some upcoming events. The first Friday is next Friday. Wickline Playground Park dedication. They're moving along. We're on some punch list items now, but we're looking at doing that dedication of the new playground on Friday, May 15th, which is also the scheduled movie day, so we will do the dedication probably earlier in the evening, and because of summer daylights extended, we'll do the movie a little bit later in the evening, but both of those would be on Friday, May 15th. Different projects going on. We may have some direction on the shade structures on the pier. Basically, FEMA has told us that if we, anything above and beyond what I've talked with Commissioner Santori about is the bookcases, the old wooden, FEMA will not pay for anything beyond that because that would be considered by FEMA an improvement. So they will pay for the traditional wooden structures that were on the pier beforehand, but anything over and above it is at city expense. So now we could always go back and do something like that later, but for the time being, we're just going to move forward with the traditional shade structures that were on the pier before. I did make the application or the presentation for the Transportation Planning Organization last week. The BPAC, Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee, they were very complimentary to the engagement of Flagler Beach now with the whole TPO process, as well as just complimentary toward all the projects and just the general culture or environment of our community. So they were highly complimentary of that. I do have a draft paid parking request for qualifications that I'll share with you at the next meeting. The intent, if we're still going this way, and again, it's only discussion, is to have that published June 1st. So again, share the draft with you, look for your feedback, make sure we're asking, but this is nothing more than soliciting parking management consultants to submit their qualifications, and then there's a process. We'll call the list of the applicants, invite them in to give a presentation on their qualifications, and then you would perhaps select one of the consultants to move forward with for further discussions. It's the implementation is still a long way off. We did discuss the FDOT golf cart concept. I will share with you probably through the Friday notes. Mr. Imson, the city's IT director, has found a way to consolidate all of the comments that we solicited through our city Facebook site. So generally, the informal assessment is it was about 75% in favor, 25% not in favor. Again, we didn't provide a lot of detail for those of you that saw the Facebook post, so there wasn't a lot of detail on that, but I'll at least share all those comments with you. Continue our discussion with Sun Trail. That's moving on. I did submit an application with the encouragement of former Commissioner Bryan for an improvement at the Custer Park for a kayak launch. I did submit that to Find for an application. It was a somewhat incomplete application because it was spur of the moment, didn't have much time to do it, so you will see they did their technical review and they said you're missing this, this, and this, so I need to get a letter from the city attorney stating we own the property, and I'll need to get a resolution officially from you supporting that application, so that'll be on the next agenda. We are also moving forward with the personnel policy review that I presented Mr. Smith a copy of the draft request for proposals. So the intention is getting that published on Monday, and that is anticipated. The target schedule for that process is to have the final document in front of you on the last day of the last meeting of the fiscal year so that you can adopt the new personnel policy, the revised personnel policy, as part of the budget approval process. So that, and then some of the discussion that you brought up at the visioning session that Ms. O'Flaherty is working on are staff town hall meetings. So we're going to try and schedule something on there'll be a certain day each month over the course of the next several months where we will have two departments represented kind of like with the vendor booth type thing at the Wickline Center. There's going to be no formal presentations, but it'll be, hey, the city clerk and the police department are going to be at the Wickline Center from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Stop by, ask questions, or whatever. So we're going to start to coordinate that. Chief Blanchett and I have talked about not only just the Citizens Academy, which we've talked about before, but also expanding it into if you consider the Citizens Academy as an undergraduate level, perhaps creating a graduate level where you can go with the department and spend one or two more or two or three more specific times with a department. So if you want to have more time with Ms. Overstreet and the city clerk, learn more about that, but a precondition of it is that you have to have already completed the undergraduate portion, and then the other departments, we'll do a 2 or 3 sessions specializing just on that department. So we're working on that. So we're still working on compiling the notes from the visioning session, but all that will be incorporated as we move through the budget process. So pending any questions, that's all I have for you today.
Any questions for city manager? The only question I got is, you're talking about community outreach in the town halls, which are great. Something else that was done in years past is staff, like once a year by department, they would set up a table at First Friday. And those were usually well attended when they were marked, and you could tell what they were, and the city put out information that those departments were going to be there. I remember FDOT came out a couple times, and their table was mobbed the whole evening, and for obvious reasons. But that gets a lot of engagement. So, food for thought. It'd be a once a year thing, but I think it's a high rate of engagement. Something to consider at least. All right, Penny. Chief. You talked a lot tonight.
On Monday, half of my department went to the basic law enforcement recruit graduation at Daytona State College in support of one of our soon-to-be new hire officers, Michelle Gonzalez, who you will meet here shortly. Lieutenant Schoenbrod was able to present her certificate. There will be some photographs of that event. It's something that that is new to the Flagler Beach Police Department. We haven't done this before, so we are now reaching out to these younger students to try and get them to come to our agency. She is a great hire. We're looking forward to her starting her law enforcement career with us. So we did that Monday night, celebrated her graduation with her family. It was a great event. This Saturday, between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. is our police department's drug take-back. I will be on hand for that, so that anybody who has any old prescriptions they want to turn in, bring them in, we'll take them, we'll dispose of them properly. And in June, we are extremely excited. We get to go to Orlando and accept officially our accreditation. It's been a 3-year battle, 3 years of hard work, and it's going to be a very proud moment for the city. So just to keep you updated on that. That's it.
All right, thank you. Facilities Director, you got anything? I didn't know if you dared or not. Okay. Mayor.
Congratulations, Chief. Thank you, Penny. Clerks Week. You are not recognized and thanked nearly enough for everything you do, keeping us all running smoothly. And thank you to City Manager and staff for the community dinner. Was fantastic, as was the cake. Publix did. If you haven't seen the picture yet, it was amazing. Our community lost a longstanding, important member of our community this week, and I just wish to send my condolences to his family. Thank you.
Mr. Santori.
Yes, I also wanted to thank staff for the community dinner. I had a good time, and it was well put on, and all the restaurants served a great meal. I was shocked at some of the portion sizes, and I think I already know what I'm going to get next year if they contribute again. Also, I know Tom's not here, but I wanted to thank him for what he did there. And the Derby run, which was last First Friday, he hosted a very cool Derby run, and resident Rich Phelan took one of my old Pier A-frames and made a car out of it, and I think he got second place. So, third? Congratulations. And then the only other thing I want to bring up is someone brought up to me that there were some issues with the South 28th Street sea oats being mowed down and this sand getting on A1A. I didn't know if that's something that can be addressed or is addressed already. Thank you.
Sorry, I didn't.
South 28th Street.
I think it's that same lot that keeps coming up down by Snack Jacks that has that one homeowner.
Yeah, that's officially a unimproved city right-of-way, and yes, the city's been in contact, or the residents been in contact, asking for that to be blocked off. Staff has had communication from others in that HOA that they say they don't want it blocked off because that's how that HOA accesses their beachfront property down there. I think Commissioner Sherman lived in that area, so he might be able to provide some additional insight. So I understand her concerns, but I think...
Are you talking about on Lagoon? This is the homeowner.
Oh. Yeah, that was, I mentioned that, okay, I'm sorry, different topic. I actually talked with the county today. The county engineer stopped by, and I've been working with Commissioner Spradley on that issue. We're aware of the concerns. There's a document somewhere that authorizes some activity. To what extent, I don't think we've fully ascertained that, but we're aware of it. We're trying to get answers.
My understanding, though, is in that document, they have permission to, like, trim or something like that, not pull out vegetation.
In the email, all I have is an email from the former county coastal engineer that explains that they can trim the vegetation to 6 inches. And yes, I recognize, I've driven by there and checked it out, and that section appears to be barren.
Right, there's
So
of course some
we
that
are,
now.
Commissioner Spradley may offer more insight.
I will. DEP issued a permit for this, I believe in this area, and it was very specific about what they could and couldn't do.
And I think our challenge is, nobody's seen the permit.
The permit was that they could move things, but I don't believe cutting them down was in the permit.
If you go by and see, it's completely barren.
I have seen the permit. So I did see the permit, and I did talk to DEP, who did verify the permit, and they said that they were going to handle all enforcement and that they were going to come after she was done and approve or fine her or handle whatever enforcement needed to be done at that point.
Okay.
All right.
Well, at least somebody's seen the permit.
Yeah, now that's good. That's
DEP about it.
Yeah, and from my side, and I know Drew will echo this, but I hate to have any discussion or make any opinion based on a document that I don't have in front of me. But I did the next best thing. I talked to retired County Attorney Al Hadid, who actually put the deal together. And he indicated that that was one of the completed task, which was to locate the document or to document what was agreed to be permitted to occur. And that conversation was last week, and he's going to follow up with me with whatever the documentation is. I don't remember. I mean, you know, Al, he has no problem talking, and it was a long conversation. And I don't remember whether he was talking about a DEP permit, but he did say that there was a writing, or will be a writing, which memorializes what he had agreed to with this resident that she could do. So I will follow up with retired County Attorney Hadid on that and report back.
Commissioner Santori, did you have anything else?
No, I don't.
And Commissioner Spradley, that's all your comments, right?
I'll be brief. I'm known for being brief at this. Yes, the community dinner was awesome. This one was even better than the last one, primarily because my table was inside the tent area instead of outside, and so that was it was an awesome looking tent also. Food was great. Restaurants are to be commended. It was a great time. And then I met some people I'd never met before. I mean, it wasn't just the standard crew around here who goes to those events, but there were some new people who seemed to really appreciate it, so that was good. Second thing, I'm going to have a town hall at my office, not this Saturday, but next Saturday, to talk solely about the golf cart crossing the bridge issue. I know that in my dealings with people around town, it feels like there are three categories of comments about this. There's the hard no's, and those are typically people who don't have golf carts to begin with. But then there's the hard yeses, who tend to be golf cart owners and others. And there's the middle ground, which I kind of feel I'm in, which yes, if there can be, if it can be done safely. And so I'm going to try to get a better sense of what the community has to say, or at least those who come to see me a week from this Saturday. And then finally, I spoke with Mr. Reynolds also about the ordinance that we were discussing tonight. And he also indicated he wanted to be here but could not. But one of the things he suggested is if for new employees, for their introduction packet or whatever, or their welcome packet or whatever it may be, if there could be something about the city's littering policy. Apparently, you know, Mr. Reynolds has keen eyes for cigarettes and cigarette butts, and he's indicated that he doesn't want there to be a situation of a city employee getting cited for tossing out a cigarette butt. So he just asked if that could be included with new employee information. That's all I have.
Actually, city employees shouldn't be smoking in city vehicles in the first place.
Okay, there you go.
Mr. Sherman.
So I went to the TPO meeting this week. Not very much was covered as far as, you know, happenings around Flagler County, but we did interesting presentation on, you know, just safety around construction sites when you're traversing those areas. We went over their budget, and it's good to be back into those meetings. And you know, so it's good to see that we again have a lot of representation up there, and I think we're going to you know, full steam ahead. I mean, I know for years we were trying to get back into that to get access to some of these funds out there. So I'm looking forward to continue to serve on that board. And just my final point tonight would be, I like the fact that we're getting in the direction of like having town halls about the different employees and the different things we do around the city. I think the communication, you know, starting out here, reflecting, you know, 5 years ago, you know, there was no communication, right? Like that was something we were thirsting for. I feel like we're moving in that direction. Maybe something that we could recommend, just talking to some citizens, would be also just putting out there what the crews have done throughout the week. You know, hey, there's cones out here around the city. This is what the maintenance crew's doing this week, or you know, just kind of what you put in your Friday notes. Maybe we put that out there readily available for the residents to see as well, so people can understand, hey, this is what my tax money is going to, and this is, you know, just to continue that level of transparency and you know, have some level of trust with the government. You know, I think most citizens do, but just to continue that level of just openness and you know, just being able to let people see what's going on around town.
Mr. Cunningham.
So we're talking about South 28th earlier. There's a new fence on the southwest corner of South 28th and A1A, and it literally blocks your line of sight the cars coming from the south in that curve in front of the restaurant. It's dangerous, and the speed limit is 45 miles an hour there. I don't know if that's meets code for fence or not. I'm not sure. It shouldn't. Not with blocking out the line of sight. You got to pull all the way out into the road almost to see. It's blocked. It used to be a slatted fence, wrought iron or iron fence, aluminum fence. Now it's solid panel. Southwest corner of South 28th and A1A. They just put it up pretty recent. I drive around a lot. And when do you think we're going to have the rate study presented to us for all the money we're borrowing and using? The rate study for the increase of what the fees are going to go up for water and sewer and everything else.
We will look at having some of those projections as part of the budget.
Okay. That's it.
All right. I went to TDC meeting on the 15th, and the big piece of that I think y'all should get in the loop on is tourism is working on their sustainability master plan update envisioning session, and what that is just their strategic plan. Did one pre-COVID, and it's getting updated now. And I would encourage all y'all to pull that meeting up. Just get in the loop on it. It's probably too much to cover, but you know, this, I brought up a lot of questions. I said, how do we decide the manner that our tourism department is going to market and the strategies they're going to follow when we haven't figured out what county is going to do with the beach? Do you market the beach? Because if you're not going to fix the beach, you can't market it because it's just going to kind of go away. So it brought up a lot of like larger discussions. And then, you know, because if you're not going to maintain the beach, then you're not going to market the beach for tourism. And if you're going to put that money, like for instance, Palm Coast mentioned they want to put that, you know, potentially use money that could go to the beach and put that towards fields, athletic fields. Well, if that's the case, then you need to come up with a strategic plan over the next 10 years that involves advertising sports fields in Palm Coast or something like that. But, you know, we talked, like, well, not we. I talked about cities' carrying capacity, the ability to manage the ever-growing in-county population versus tourism. I also brought up that I believe that in-county population funneling themselves into our city versus spreading equally to the 6 hidden beaches that Commissioner Sullivan keeps referencing actually is eroding tourism. Because there's only so much carrying capacity. The question got brought up, what's the carrying capacity of the city? I said, well, it's a matter of who do you have to have your target audience and at the right places. And, you know, tourism is something that Flagler Beach reaps very large benefits from. Now, if you have a family from inside the county that are non-residents of Flagler Beach and they come here with their tent and their cooler and everything, and they just hang out for the entire day and then they go home because they don't need anything from the city, that's not your target person you want here in the city. I'm not saying it all. I'm just saying using up a parking spot, you know, taking up a spot that tourism could take up, you know, this is just a big macro discussion about tourism. And, you know, then look at what is in the pipeline as far as homes for the county and how that's going to affect us and tourism over the next 10 years. It's a pretty deep discussion. But it really bears the question of if, you know, where's county at in this? And so one of the things that we did decide is that whatever decisions made as far as, you know, marketing and strategy, or even what is to become of the beach, there needs to be safeguards put in place that it can't do a 180 whenever there's an election. So if the county decides they want to move forward with helping to take care of the beach, then in that piece of legislation, it needs to get locked in so the next fall, you're not immediately killing it, which is what we saw. We saw counties spend a couple of years building up to having a funded beach management program, and then one election, they completely, you know, did a 180 from that. Best thing, just watch it. What that does is that gets you all kind of on the same page of some of these pending questions of what to do over the next 10 years, which coincides with our own strategic plan that none of the other municipalities know about, nor do they care. But when we interact with those other elected officials, you know, it's up to us. We have to make them care because it's an interesting dynamic. One of the things I brought up is so Palm Coast is the majority of the beach users. Flagler County is the majority of the beach dollars. And Flagler Beach is the majority of the control of that. How do you balance that? So it's working through that dynamic, and that really brings up, you know, things like, okay, multi-municipality meeting probably needs to start getting hot and heavy into some of those topics and really talking about the nitty-gritty. And it's all the political stuff that a lot of folks that are elected don't like to talk about because they end up getting negative feedback from constituents. But when this whole 10-year strategy discussion started, you know, first questions out of my mouth is, what are we doing on the beach? Can't come up with a strategy if you don't know what you're doing on the beach. And these are county tourism dollars that sometimes we get benefits from. We almost had some benefits from it, but this is money that county makes by having people stay to come visit us, and there's money dynamic there, and we have to work on answering those questions ourselves because tourism has a big impact on our city. But you also have 40,000 homes that are already approved in the pipeline. That doesn't even count ones that are going to be approved more. For instance, you all read the article about Rainier and another 20,000 homes. That's good stuff. And here's the thing, all of their marketing is the beach. And I saw a ad for a housing development and this ad was probably almost a minute long, and only about the last 5 seconds was there any shots of something other than Flagler Beach in this ad for a Palm Coast housing development. It's quite interesting. So I think I just thought it was a real important thing to share. Another thing is, and this kind of came up in our discussions here, and this, I'm just putting this out there, this isn't really, so there's some ordinance coming on businesses that kind of came from a citizen that's going to be a call to action on some things. And I have just a lot of reservations about that. And I don't even know what's in the ordinance.
Well, there's not an ordinance coming. That was my conversation, Mr. Reynolds. It was because I knew what was, you'd given direction on these things. He'd asked if we could put the business regulation stuff in there. I said, because they're discussing rights of way, I think that's premature. So actually, I think where you're going is exactly why it was excluded, because you had directed on these issues to have an ordinance, not that, and that's why I said I would bring it up and discuss it tonight. But there's actually not an ordinance coming forward because you haven't given that direction yet.
And I would just, as somebody who owns a business and represents the business sector, and we saw this when, when city wanted to move forward with fats, oil, and grease program, like, there can be unintended consequences. It might look great on paper and it might sound good, but you have to tread carefully on the business sector, because that's volatile. If you're asking a business to take care of a right-of-way, but you don't ask the citizens or your own municipality to do the same thing, it brings up a whole lot of conversation. So I just would like you all to keep that at front of mind. No action, but that was a big red flag that got.
To the extent there was any confusion, no, that's why that was not included in this, is because of that. And I explained that y'all are dealing, the rights of ways are a much bigger, maintenance of rights of way are a much bigger issue. And so that was actually the exact reason why I gave Mr. Reynolds on why that would be premature.
And I get that folks out there would like, look, we got a problem with litter. Everybody has a problem with litter. Society, as we have it now, because nobody cares apparently anymore, we have a problem with litter. But you can't get into fining businesses for cleaning areas that are like outside of their immediate parking lot, and you get into right of ways, and that's very dicey territory. But it's not coming. If y'all get approached by it, just make sure you get all the details on it versus just saying, "Oh, that sounds great. Let's go ahead and do it." I think there is a very appropriate place for litter ordinances and dealing with it. It's just coming up with the right thing for our city. That's all I got. We'll open this up public comment. Any members of the public have any comments?
Rich Phelan, 255 Ocean Palm Drive. I'm glad to see Penny was recognized. A few times I've had interaction with Penny. She's been extremely helpful, and I want to personally thank you. Very awesome. On my first comment, I made a couple questions, and quite honestly, I didn't quite answer I didn't understand the answers. So, with the issue with the document brought up by Rick Belhumer and the responses from the city manager, the way I understand it, Mr. Cooley talked to the manager, everything is good, and basically we swept this under the carpet. I personally had concerns about some of the answers, and I would have thought that the commissioners would have discussed this as a group, and because this was brought up in public forum, that maybe some public document would have put forward, or somehow the public would have known what your response was to the manager's response. I think the citizens probably owed that, in my opinion. The second comment I made, and I just didn't understand the answer. Rick Belhumer's property and the flooding problem. Yes, there is a small berm in the road, but because the road at some point was repaved, raised, it appears to be, and because the swales are non-effective, the water is actually broken over the upstream side of that berm and is directly flooding right into Mr. Belhumer's property. And I think the city owes a citizen here, regardless of whether he's a former commissioner or not, the city owes to get that rectified, in my opinion. And by the way, you know, full disclosure, I don't know Rick Belhumeur, so I'm saying this as a concerned citizen. You know, I've seen Rick Belhumeur up at the dais. I don't know him, so as a concerned citizen and seeing the reaction we're getting from the city on something that he brought forward, I wasn't satisfied with that, so that's why I'm speaking about this. Thank you.
Anyone else for public comment?
Good evening, Melanie Thompson, John Anderson Highway. One answer was questioned already about what the outcome came of the pulling of the carts on the beach, or the bridge, sorry. My other question is code enforcement going to Miranda Bay and watching the development now, since you guys are handling that? Or is it still up in the air? And also, a previous comment about the barriers on the bridge. Actually, that was one of the things I was going to bring up tonight about the barriers and how ugly they are. And thought maybe, you know what, throw some epoxy paint on there, light blue, something, just to get that nastiness looking. Because you look at the view going over the bridge, and it's just, those barriers, just that's all you can see. So that's all. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anyone else for public comment? All right, seeing none, we'll close public comment. We'll do last one first. Is building department doing Miranda Bay, or is there a transition date on that?
The only thing, they're part of the city now, and the only thing we're still in transition with is transitioning the sanitation services, because city staff is coordinating with the current hauler. So that's in transition right now, but otherwise, yeah, they're part of the city. So building department, code enforcement, utilities, everything.
Got it, okay. First comment, Rich, you completely misspoke about my conversation with Dale. I never once said everything is good and nothing got swept under the carpet. So what I did say was the commissioners can respond to your questions on their own. We don't do that here from the dais. They can reach out to you directly, or you can reach out to them directly. And Commissioner Rick's property got discussed in full detail, so I don't know what we're missing there. It's in process. City staff went out and looked at it, and they were gonna, I forget how it was left. That was the beginning of the meeting.
Actually, if I understand from Mr. Freeman, Mr. Belhumeur actually approached Mr. Freeman to address the issue, and the issue, again, a berm was placed last year. The water flows around. There's no swales in that area, so I'm not sure where that information comes from. But the water flows into the alley, and then from the alley, the water flows into his property. The city had nothing to do with that. The city, from what I understand, the roadway has not changed in decades. So the city installed a berm last year, and after the discussion at the last city commission meeting, Mr. Belhumeur met with Mr. Freeman to further address the situation.
Right. And if we have a piece of city infrastructure, it just needs to work as it's supposed to. Yeah. All right. That goes up public comment. Look for motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
All right. We're adjourned.